Good morning, friends, and welcome back to the Legend Fiction Show. I'm your host, Dominic, founder of the Legend Fiction community, professional nerd, I suppose. Been writing for about since I was 13. I'm now 38, and so it's a journey that's never going to end. And I love helping indie fiction authors find ways to write their dream novel and get it done, get it up and published, and doing things with it, such as building your author brand, selling more books, finding your readers, all the kind of things that we want to do as indie authors. Um, I love that sort of stuff because it's exactly what I am doing all the time. And what I want to do is help other people find more of their own freedom and do the kind of thing that I've taught myself how to do. And it's not as hard as it looks, but it's harder than you expect if you don't have the time to put into trying to figure it out. So, for example, I was showing these to a friend like the other day. For example, here are 3 books, right, that I've put out myself just because I wanted to. I didn't have permission to do it. Nobody asked me to do it. Nobody frankly really cares. But I just did it because I wanted to. And it looks awesome to be on my desk, right? And then, of course, I get to go to my website and I get to put it on my website and I can sell it on Amazon. And when I go and host podcasts and interviews and so on, I can wave copies of my book around and I look very legit and professional and whatever. That's all this side of actually becoming a bestseller author. I don't have those answers. But if you're somebody who's just like, I've got an idea and I would love to be able to print off a couple of copies of my own novel for the grandkids on, at Christmas, or my friend, or just for myself, or I'm going to a book fair and I want to have a bunch of them on the table. If you're that kind of indie author, you don't have a lot of money and you do have a lot of creativity. Um, I'm here to help you, and I want to be able to be helpful. And so there's a couple of different things that we can talk about, and we've got a busy, full lineup of stuff that we're going to cover today. So if you're jumping on, say hi in the chat, drop your questions. If you got a favorite brand of ketchup, let me know because I'm not sure which one is the best. I mean, we have Heinz because who doesn't, but maybe you've got something local that's more interesting. So we're going to talk about why writing alone is the default, and why does this even come up? Well, let's get into that. So we'll talk about why writing alone, and then depending on how much time we have, we might get into chronotypes. I've got Gabi joining me at top of the hour, 10 o'clock, and we're going to record for you all to see live. We're going to record an episode of the writing school. We try to meet every week to get that together, so we're going to show that, share that lesson with you. And then after that, hold on, let me pull up my calendar again. I have 2 guests back to back starting at 11, so that's going to be a fun busy morning. Who do I have? I have Karina Turner, who is an awesome author who's in our community. And we're going to be talking about, what was it? Saints and Dinosaurs. I think that should be pretty fun. And then we have Emily Strand at half past, who is another author. We're going to be talking about her conference that she's a part of, upcoming Faith That Builds Worlds conference. So that's going to be, it's a full morning. We're going to carry that all the way till top of the hour. So if you have a cup of coffee, sit back and enjoy where this conversation goes. It's going to be a full morning. And if I can squeeze it in, I might try to do this, squeeze it in. It's an interesting insight I found about GEO versus SEO and what that means for authors. So let's see. We've got about a half hour ish, maybe 20 minutes before Gabi gets in. Let's see if we can get everything in. So, first of all, let's talk about writing alone. If you're like me, and maybe probably like most authors, it is very difficult to write, just like at all. It's probably really hard to do. And so having a really quiet house and having, other people leaving you alone is probably something that you need. Um, Coming from my childhood background, so I grew up in New Zealand and Australia, and we were constantly moving. And um, I am the eldest of 8 kids, and so it's very hard to find time to be alone, so that you can like relax and disassociate on purpose so that you can focus on becoming a whole nother person in a galaxy far, far away, going on all kinds of improbable adventures. Um, well, what ends up happening is if you keep chasing that, what happens? Well, I think we've got this myth of the Hobbit alone in the Hobbit hole, right? Cue Bilbo trying to write his Red Book of Westmarch, I think it was, or other authors in these lovely rotating sheds at the bottom of gardens. I can't remember who that was. You're always running away from everybody to go to try to write. And then you finish writing, and at that point, you're pretty happy with it. And then you don't maybe share it with anybody because, ugh, people, right? Well, I think you can fall into a trap. And unless you create some little safeguards early on, you're going to stay in a trap of writing alone and never getting help, feedback, moral support, because inevitably you'll hit a slump. Unless you're someone like Stephen King, where you don't need to write every day anymore, but he's done the work of putting in the habit of daily discipline. You know, I think, what does he do? Sit down from like 9 a.m. to 12, and he does not leave his room until X number of words are done, and he just sits and writes for hours. Or you're, Ursula Le Guin, or some of these people with these wonderful disciplined habits that they've established for years. They've been practicing. We're not at that point. I think these are often also people who have had a lot of reward in that they've been published and they've become extremely successful and all of this, and maybe they do this kind of thing full time. But if you're like the rest of us at the bottom of the pyramid who are still trying to figure it out and get into it, you're more like Ray Bradbury, right? After the kids have gone to bed or early in the morning, standing up in the basement, banging out a story on a typewriter because that's all you have time for. And you don't have a lot of reward yet. You don't have a lot of the lots of good things and the attention and the sort of the royalty checks coming that reassure you that it's okay to huddle away from people for a long period of time and just write. You don't get to have that. So what happens when you hit a slump like the rest of us? Um, well, you probably don't write. And then if everybody around you doesn't get you, they don't know what you're doing, they don't understand why it matters. And let's say people at your parish or your community center or your local school, they're like, "Oh, you're right, that's kind of cool." And then you have a slump, and you might need specific things, specific questions, specific kinds of encouragement. And nobody else who's if there are no authors around you, they have no idea how to give that to you because they have no idea what you need. They just think that you're just in a slump. Just sit down and write, son. Get her done. And you're like, "No, it doesn't exactly work that way." Now, there might be some truth to it, but if you're like most of us creatives, like, you hate being forced into anything. There's that sort of creative rebel spirit that's like, it doesn't feel right, and we are way too attuned to how we feel to just shove it down and keep going. Now you can, and there might be some discipline that can come from that. That might be a good thing. It may not always be, and that's why I don't like hard, fast rules for everybody. Certainly, some rules that do make sense um, is having some kind of a system. I mean, that just benefits everybody, so that you can choose to drop the system or break the system at any point. But having anything is probably a good idea. Having a sense of discipline is always good, no matter who you are. What is discipline? It's just implementing your systems, right? And we talked about that when we talked about imposter syndrome, I think, in the last conversation. Sort of a deep dive into all of that. Here's what I found. I think that if you're writing all by yourself and you're not sharing it with anybody, you know who's listening? It's you in the mirror, you in your own mind and your own soul. And all of your content is sort of rattling around you inside like a little circle. And there's no external interest, there's no external feedback, there's no external storytelling, there's no anything from anybody else that's coming in to keep nourishing you. And you do need that. I think you do need that as an author. Storytelling is not just a exercise that you do or something that you do completely by yourself, for yourself. Not normally. It's a form of communication. If you're standing and you're talking to an empty stage forever, I might begin to wonder if you're okay. If you're standing in the dark and there's nobody in the room and there's just the spotlight on you, and you're in a play of your own making that nobody's ever heard and nobody knows where it's going, and you don't really care because you're just doing it with yourself. I would get to a point where I would wonder, Buddy, are you okay? Maybe let's go have a coffee. Let's sit down. Let's talk together. Like, uh, do you have anybody to talk to? Blink if you're okay." Well, I think storytelling can be like that too. Storytelling of its nature is a communal act. And I don't like to be reductionist and go, well, everything is can be reduced back to cavemen around campfires. There is that. I do think that happens because something deeper is in play. I think that it is vital as humans to be in communication with each other. And if you get something like an idea or something and you want to share that, or you want to translate that into something that is communicating, why do we communicate? It's not to an empty cave or an empty amphitheater. It's so that we can have something to share that brings life or help or health to somebody else, to another person. Um, because how we're oriented in life. We're like a little trinity. It's like a triangle. There's you, there's the ultimate good that orients your whole life, everything that you do, and then there's others whom we believe are instantiations of this ultimate good. And we're trying to figure out how we can live that out too. So if we're not engaging with other people in some maybe limited way, I'm not saying everybody has to get up on stage. If you're like most authors, you would never want to get up on stage anyway, but we are constantly in dialogue with our ultimate good and with how that ultimate good is present in others, even in a veiled, shaded way, because it's veiled and shaded in us. So we're figuring that out all the time. And then when we learn something, we want to share that with others. So storytelling is a communal activity or it's a relational activity. So if you're writing novels, at some point, it's probably a good idea to try to share that with somebody else. Um, Again, if you're like me and you are before the whole internet era, right? When I grew up, so I was growing up in Australia, New Zealand, I sound like a total, kid from like Stranger Things, even though it was the early 2000s. We just didn't have internet. Excuse me, for a long time, we just didn't have internet. Now my dad did, obviously, because he needed it. And I remember, I remember dial-up. You probably don't remember that, do you? Um, Type dial-up in the comments if you do. But we used to have dial-up, from, to get online and all of that. We didn't, my dad did. We would have local word processing, so we would type things, maybe locally. And the only people I would share stuff with, of course, is some of my siblings. I might try to print like a book out and pass it to a couple of friends at the homeschool co-op. And my goodness, seeing the sort of glow light up in their eyes, like, you wrote this? And I'm like, you know, 'cause yeah, I just punched through handwriting for 50 pages. You do get some very valuable things. Not just in terms of feedback, but in terms of people relating to other people, giving you support and encouragement, just that light in their eyes, like, "I loved this story," or, "I can't believe you actually did this, you dark horse, there's a whole side of you didn't know anything," right? Um, and I remember the first time that I ever got online and I searched up, like, I think it was like fiction writing or story writing community or forum, or where can I post my stories online, probably is what I typed, and I found an old forum. And I remember I was in a French I was a no, it was a boarding school in France, an English boarding school in France at the time, and then I discovered this website, like, I can post stories on there because other people are posting stories on there, and I can give feedback, and I can get feedback, and, it was one of the most incredible things I'd ever discovered. Now, I was an absolute snot-nosed, elitist-minded sort of person, snot-headed, and I learned a little bit about how to conduct myself better online, sort of how to make friends, but I also got fantastic feedback from people. And it was wonderful because some of them instantly aligned or helped me to see, here's where you're good. Uh, Here's where you can focus on this. I still am amazed at the kindness of people who paid it forward and gave me some good feedback, gave me any attention at all because I was like an absolute nobody, a byline on like a little website, um, and a forum filled with thousands of stories. Right. So here's then my other experience. When I started the community legend fiction that I run, I wasn't writing for years. I hadn't written anything, barely even stories. And so hanging around this community, if you're alone, like I was, I literally sit in a room kind of like this all day, right? I work remote, have for years, kind of been in like a long form of quarantine because of like, well, then the whole pandemic came. And at that point with the pandemic, it's like, well, a lot of us are even more alone. So it's incredibly just fantastic that there are things like online communities. I used to love Mythic Scribes, still do. I mean, they're pretty amazing. The mythicscribes.com community. If you haven't, go check them out. They're wonderful. And just sort of quietly hanging around and watching, just watching those conversations, just watching people chat and give feedback and support each other. And so then I went and started my own community because I'm like, well, you know, what if we did that in a way that works for who we wanna be and the kind of stories that we wanna create in the world? Because everybody else is trying to, like, pander or cater to absolutely everybody, and I'm like, "No, I'd like to create a community that focuses on a specific thing." Um, well, what happens, right? During the sort of the downturn season of writing, during that time when I'm not actually writing anything, and everybody goes through this phase. There's some days where you're, like, massively inspired and other days where you're not at all. During that downtime, I'm just sitting there watching other people in the community write. And then they are getting excited and they're giving each other awesome feedback. And and then one day all of a sudden, like, oh, I can do this. And I just started and I wrote. And then I managed to punch out a 100,000 word novel. I'm still kind of amazed looking back at that. Downside is I haven't done it in a year. But then work has been busy and I've been just focusing on building the community. So technically, kind of building the community is like a massive story adventure, which is another thought. I'm thinking of starting a channel to talk about all of that kind of thing, tactics and tips and how to do stuff, right? But if you're always writing by yourself and you're not sharing it with anybody, I think it's a trap. I think it's a trap because it can keep you stuck. Because then when you bottom out and you don't have anybody else who knows what you're trying to accomplish, it's really hard for you to then muscle your way back into keeping it going. And let me go out on a limb here and go, this might be an issue more for guys than it is for girls. Um, Guys are so much more used to, what is that line? White knuckling life like it's a solo sport. Most of us don't ask for help because we don't know how. We're never shown how. We were shown that we have to stand on our own feet and make things happen under our own steam. And that's a valuable lesson for for men to learn, young men to learn from an early age. But then the problem is it's never sort of tempered out with how to better relate and connect with other people. I think maybe um, a lot of women, do a lot better because I think women are oriented more by default towards relationship and networking. Um, and that's usually why they have much better chat threads and text threads, and guys don't. So maybe a lot of this advice is just absolutely coming from someone like me, who not only has ADD but is a guy, and working, providing for his family. I think there's a lot of us out there. I'm actually kind of impressed at the number of young men who are in the community, and they all seem to share the same kind of questions that I have. So if you're writing alone, I think it's a trap. I don't think it's an ideal. I don't think it's the best way to go about being a writer. I think writers need to be in conversation with people. I think they need to be in um, not just conversation with people. I think today you need to be building a brand, especially if you're trying to be an indie author. If you're not trying to be an indie author, then you're just trying to be a writer. That's different. If you're simply just trying to write, do whatever you want, obviously, and you're going to write for your family, just write for your friends, write for nobody. You're just writing because it's a fantastic, cathartic kind of out exploration of what you think. You're basically journaling dramatically. But if you're trying to be an indie author, that's different. An indie author is trying to reach and network and connect with other people, and you're trying to grow a fan base, you're trying to grow fans, meet fans, sell more books, find more readers. And so you need to do stuff. You need to be in conversation with people. You need to be doing things that put you into a place of getting feedback with other authors. So joining a community, even if you just sort of hang around, just find free communities. There's so many out there, lots of forums. Some of them will even pay you to write on them, like Royal Road. I haven't tested it, but I've heard good things. Mythic Scribes. I mean, you can write, and there's places to share your writing, and there's just forums chattering all the time. They're fantastic. There's LegendFiction, which is our community, where people are doing the same thing. They're writing constantly, and they're joining little contests, or they're just working on their own projects, and they're chatting together, and they're joining tournaments to motivate each other to keep writing. If you're more of the word count warrior type, so how legend fiction is solving this thing is trying to make it easier for you to keep writing by giving you the support of a community that understands it. So don't write alone. Find a group. You don't have to pay for anything. There are Discord servers out there, I'm sure. Um, you can check out like Google Inkwells and Anvils, their Discord server I know of. There's Raconteur Press. I think you can ask to get an invite to their group, and they're writing constantly. Like my brain fritzes when I go to Discord. I can't. It's just way too much going on. You could probably argue exactly the same in Legend Fiction, but it just works for my brain better. Um, maybe just because there's a little bit less going on. I don't know. See ask me that question again once we hit 1,000 members. Um, but I have found just by simply hanging around other people when I'm not writing, I get an energy that seems to magically come from nowhere. By watching other people be happy and excited, by reading their writing. There's something so different about reading the writing of like a published novel that you get on Kindle. And then you go and you read a draft of an author who's sort of privately sharing it and asking for feedback. And when the writing is really good, I mean, even when it's bad, but like even when it's good, you're in a different mind space. And you look at that and then you go, I could do that. I could do that. I could do that writing thing too. And then all of a sudden, you start building up a little bit of confidence. I know I can do that. Let me try. You just do a paragraph. Or you think critically through their thing and you give them some supportive feedback. Now you're switching like things on in your mind. You're activating things in your soul. A little bit of confidence, a little bit of energy. So that's my recommendation. I don't think it's a healthy thing to write alone forever. You might need to do it for a season, and then we literally gather energy from each other. We share that to atomize and to shield yourself off from any sort of energy transfer, any sort of life that comes from other people. Not just your environment, not just your food, but literally other people. You find the right people who bring you life. Probably avoid people who drain life out of you. There are those people. Avoid places that drain life from you. Go to places that excuse me, that feed you, put life into you. And if you're an author, don't this is my recommendation because this is what I do. If you're an author, don't just be someone who just takes that energy, also give it, because it is in giving that we shall receive, right? Support other authors, share what you think, and often you will be taking and learning what it is that they think, what's in their stories. It'll often give you better ideas, but you'll be engaging with other people. It'll switch on new ways of thinking about what it is that you're writing when you're helping somebody else, you're giving them feedback. So maybe if you balance it, it's kind of like 65, whatever the rest of that math is, 35. If you balance that out with like 65 year on writing, 35% hanging out in a forum, just seeing what other people are doing. You're refreshing your mind. You're staying in touch with things. It's like mentally going out for a walk around the neighborhood, but you're doing it through other people's worlds. Um, you will get energy. You will get inspiration to keep going because you will be hanging around other people who absolutely get it. And that's exactly why we've got our community because we want to help people. Okay. If you've got any thoughts or questions on any of that, let me know. Drop them in the comments. What we're going to do is take the next couple of minutes. I want to go over a really interesting news article that I had sort of covered, but I hadn't really thought through until I was chatting with Gemini about it. And let me see, let me screen share and see if we can take a couple of minutes to talk about this. And then we'll probably have Gabby joining us. All right, let me see. What happens if I do this? I want to change my layout to be like that. Hopefully this looks nice and neat and you can see it okay. Okay, so here's the thing. We're talking about GEO. Now, I don't totally get this, but I am very interested in what happens with this, right? Let me see if I can move this over to this screen, maybe. So the thing with GEO is AI is studying and tracking and intuiting and understanding like everything so much more than it did before. And in the past, all you had to do when you make a website is you just put keywords on it. There's entire agencies and industries that just their job is to understand what do people search for, and you take those words and you put it on your website. I never got good at this. I never wanted to learn it. It was way too tech minded. So I'm a little bit kind of happy that something like GEO is now taking over because you can't game GEO. A lot of people tried to game SEO, search engine optimization, by like stuffing keywords in every page in their website and going out and hunting for backlinks from other things and so on. Well, now GEO is smarter, so much smarter than that because something like Chat, Gemini, or these other tools can they'll start with stuff like SEO, but then they will understand what it is you're trying to ask for and what possibly you are trying to ask for. And then it'll go out and look for, and with fuzzy matching, what you probably want. Okay. So that's a very different situation in that you can't just stuff a bunch of words into something and sort of force a search engine to show it up. Because if the search engine knows that I am very interested in a specific kind of thing, and even if I didn't specifically say it, it knows, well, part of the profile that it's building about you is you're interested in these topics. That's going to affect what it finds. So, I was looking at this earlier, and I'll just go through it like really, really quickly because then I want to go over to what Gemini had to say, and I think you'll find this really interesting. Here's why I'm bringing this up at all. I have been fascinated forever with the idea that an author can be a studio, a marketing studio, and GEO. It looks like this is going to be a working theory for me that I think is true. It looks like GEO will favor authors who function like production studios. And if you're thinking, oh my gosh, this sounds like so much more work, and I just want to write. Well, okay, you might be right. And hold on, it might not be for everybody, but let's just be aware of it. Let's see what happens. So here's what this article is saying. It's from the Creative Pen. She released this. Joanna Penn released this article, which I did cover in the past. 2026 trends and predictions. And let's go back down. So, generative. Where did she go? My thing bounced. Generative AI. There we go. Generative engine optimization is set to replace search engine optimization as the way brands get discovered. More people are turning to AI chatbots and agentic workflows and answer engines. Okay, so we all get, I think we already get that. Um, let's scroll down to this next part. AI can understand complex conversational queries that traditional search engines struggled with. So someone might ask, what's a good thriller set in a small town with a female protagonist who's a journalist investigating a cold case? And then you can get highly specific recommendations. It's not going to go away. It's just going to continue. So that means your book metadata, your website content, and your online presence needs to be more detailed and conversational. Now, I completely skipped past this last time I read this and thought, okay, whatever, I don't have to pay attention to this. Well, I got an actual piece of information that made this so much more interesting. AI search engines understand context in ways that go far beyond simple keywords. The authors who win in this new landscape will be those who create rich, authentic content about their books and themselves, not just your promotional copy. Okay, well, what does that mean? What's rich, authentic content about their books? What does that mean? So let me go over to Gemini. Okay, and let's have a look at what it says here. I'm going to put it up on my other screen. Oh, hey, Gabby, you made it in.
Hi.
Hi, good to see you.
Good to see you
Um,
too.
I am just going over a piece of news. Maybe you landed at the exact awesome time. Let's see where this goes. Let me recap really quick since you just landed. Uh, have you heard of this new thing called GEO versus SEO? You ever heard of that?
No, I have not.
Okay, all right. Briefly, um, up until like the last couple of years, when you go to build a website,
Mhm.
or well, you want to show up online, I should say. If you want to show up
Mhm.
online, you basically take, you find out what are people searching for, what are the
Mhm.
words that they use, and then you take
And then
those
you put
words
that in your content.
everywhere, or you hide it in the metadata inside your website, and you build your whole website around this.
Mhm.
You make sure that your domain name is that, your brand
Yep.
name is that, right? And so you've got some websites are absolutely stupid, like what is my favorite restaurant.com, and it's like, well, okay. So there used to be a lot of black hat and white hat SEO stuff, and agencies and businesses would jump up and try to create this stuff. Well, everybody keeps talking about GEO, and I'm like, I don't know, I don't care. I hated SEO back when I worked for agencies. It's
Yeah.
boring, it's not creative, blah. But other people
Yeah.
make a lot of money doing it, and I just never wanted to. So I've just avoided this whole conversation around GEO until I asked Gemini this morning, go out and find me all the most interesting news that indie authors should know about. And then it came back with this thing about generative discovery, and it wrote it up in a way I'd never thought of. And it ladders back to kind of what you and I have chatted about with authors being like production studios.
Mhm.
So let me just read this through, and I'm actually very interested to see if any ideas come to your mind.
Yeah.
So it says here, um, marketing paradigms that have sustained indie authors for the last decade. Let me zoom in a little bit more. That's a big zoom. Has undergone a big shift. Oops, that's the wrong news item. Let me go down to this one here. So AI powered search is shifting because
Mhm.
AI is so much better at understanding not just what you say, but what you mean.
Mhm.
So if you're asking a generative engine, sounded like you, a dark industrial fantasy with necromancy and a brooding protagonist, the engine does not look just for those words. It's also looking for the context, the depth, and relational data of available metadata. So authors who have built rich online authentic presences filled with detailed world building, interviews, and conversational blog posts are being surfaced at significantly higher rates than those who rely on static promotional copy.
Nice.
So let's keep going for a second. Why is this cool and useful? This is a massive win for authors who treat their writing like a studio, as it rewards depth over volume. So the generative engine optimization model values the quality of the data points that an author provides to the internet. So if an author's website contains a grimoire of their magic system or a detailed history of their sci-fi world, the AI search engines, like Gemini or GPT models, can synthesize that information to present the book as the perfect match for a specific reader query. So it
Nice.
moves the burden away from gaming the algorithm and more toward feeding the algorithm with high quality content. And
Sounds
I,
like you're gonna get a better audience that way anyway.
well, yeah. Um,
Nice.
and I think that's okay. So that's good. So stop sharing. and go back to here. So why I think that is fascinating is because what have we done in the past? You build a website, you build a landing page. Here's my book. You put your book on Amazon and you try to get a bunch of reviews. And maybe you go on a couple of interviews and you put those interviews like they're on YouTube or something. Um, and that's not bad. That's valuable. Well, what if you do start sharing your world building library or diaries on
Honestly,
your
that's
blog?
so much more enticing to me as a writer, because I hate going on the internet and just trying to pitch myself to you
Mhm.
constantly, but if I can just go on and fangirl over my own work, and that does the
Which
work.
we do anyway every day, if, when we
Right,
go to write.
exactly. Well, here's
So,
the thing too,
yeah.
like, I would try and even pull back on that because I would just be like, "Okay, well, I don't wanna spend so much time on the internet, so I have to make what I want to share count." So then I would default to those, like, strictly planned out marketing things, and now I can actually spend that time that I'm going to spend on the internet on something fun.
Mhm. Agreed, agreed. It's like up until learned this information, I'm like, well, if I ever wanted how do I say this? It's funny. What this recommended is exactly what I would have wanted to do when I get around to marketing my book.
Yeah,
Um,
exactly.
because I thought, well, this is what's interesting to me. I think it would be interesting to other people. And then the
Yes.
website has like just all kinds of other stuff that I think is genuinely fun. Most other
Mhm.
people are not doing that, maybe because I don't know, you want to sell the rest of you're making your own Silmarillion or stuff. Um, maps or sketches or photos of your pin boards and so on. But again, what we've done in the past is you just build a landing page and then you go
Mhm.
to Meta or Facebook and then you try to create like ads and then you post about those ads. Excuse me, or you throw money at trying to like get ads to sell your book, or you go to Substack or you go to your blog and you go, well, I was taking a walk yesterday and I saw a ring-hearted something on my, I don't know, near a throat-chested warbler, whatever. And this reminded me of my novel. And here's why last Thanksgiving was, it would have been so much better if they'd had my novel or something. And then you try to like basically sell your way out of a paper bag.
Yeah.
And it's basically LinkedIn, but you're trying to do that on your own
Yeah.
blog. And still nobody reads it except for your mom and a couple of diehard fans.
Right,
Well,
have you seen that meme where it's like, it's a little bit of it of yeah, excuse me, it's a little bit of a tangent, but I think it's funny, where it's, like, talking about someone who's struggling to, like, reach people on Instagram,
Mhm.
and one guy texts his friend, so, like, we'll call them A and B. A texts B and says, "Bro, where were you when my photo only got 4 likes?" And then B says, "I was creating 4 accounts."
Yeah, making 4 accounts, bro. That's oh,
That is
say
how it
less.
feels.
Yeah, yeah. So going this route, because the funny thing is I've already seen the power of GEO because I'd created a bunch of YouTube tutorials. And then somebody was over in China just Googling, well, who's somebody who talks about this and this topic? And then it surfaced up my name. All I did was just created content about stuff I thought was helpful. And for some reason
Nice.
that got scraped and then I made a new friend. So
Nice.
that's not going away because, in fact, I think it's going to continue. So when you have lots of people, which is just what happens, it's a simple little line that makes sense to me. Sometimes you don't have to out compete or be better than somebody. Usually, excellence is always a good thing. Sometimes you just have to last longer than them.
Mhm.
So there are lots
And
of
sometimes
authors.
you just have to love it more than they do.
Well, and if you actually do love it, you probably will stick with it, even if you
Mhm.
lose money over the thing.
Mhm.
Dang it. But there's people who will absolutely flake as soon as they start losing money or after a year, there's like, I wasn't in this anyway. I was just trying to make money with my book, or
Mhm.
it's just not the right
Which why
season of
would you
life.
pick that?
Yeah, it's kind of like having a kid. Like you don't do it for the feels. You do it because of there's a very noble, well, okay, yes, there's the feels. But you stick with it because you know this is the right thing to do and I
'Cause it's
cannot be
amazing,
anywhere
not
else. And
'cause
it's
there's, like, something tangible that you are
there's
going to
lots of
get.
down feels and,
Yeah.
late night diapers and then the stuff. But a novel is like that too. I'm like, "Oh, I'm with book, right? I'm trying to birth this thing and it's a nightmare, right?"
I'm with
Sometimes, and then it's like, "Oh, this is wonderful. I'll never do this again." And, um, looking at your muse, "You did this to me," right? Well, it's true. So if you're in love with a thing, you'll probably last longer. So if you focus on filling your website and posting online the kinds of things that actually interest you, like your own creative Bible,
Mhm.
or your characters, put them all online. You're also giving the agentic AI, GPTs, and so on. You're giving them more touch points and more talking points about who you are and who you're for and what you're interested in, so that they can pair that with the right people.
Mhm.
Um, Working theory for me. I'm interested to see where it goes. All right,
Yeah, I mean, I'm excited because I'm about to kinda buckle down on my marketing, because I've just
mm,
spent the last 2, 3 weeks even just only trying to finish up these edits to my book, and it has been
mhm,
whipping me. But I'm like, "I need to get this done because I have some deadlines coming up." So, I am about to buckle down on the marketing, and now I'm kinda more excited because
yeah,
now I can A, just share what's fun about my book. I can actually share what's exciting, not what I
mhm,
think is going to make people click the
nice,
heart or
yeah,
whatever
yeah.
kind of a thing. And yeah.
Have you ever seen, and we'll transition over to our conversation, but, have you ever seen, concept art books, like, from big film production
Mhm.
studios and so on? I love those.
I do too.
Well, depends on the movie, but I love those kinds of books because it's a way to look behind the scenes at all the stuff that they left behind to
Yeah.
just focus on the story, and, like, as a writer, like, my imagination, I just love seeing all the other options, partly because I can go, "Well, if they didn't use it, I could probably use that maybe."
Yeah.
Nobody will know, probably, hopefully, but to be able to think like that, if you're an author, you're like Peter Jackson sitting on the set of Lord of the Rings in your head. And to be able to showcase, well, here's the art that I wanted, or here's the artwork that I loved that I either found on Pinterest, or I found on Google, or I generated, or I sketched myself, or I hired my second dance cousin once removed to draw this one thing for me. And then you put that out and you share that. You take photos of how awful your messy notes are, or how Scrivener works. And that also leads to more authenticity. That's the other thing as well, because we're looking for authenticity.
Mhm.
Um, there's a whole conversation, which we don't have to get into, about people who just straight up generate books. I'm not saying it's necessarily good or bad. I'm undecided. Um, but who straight up generate books and then just ship it online. If you're not involved in any way, I don't think that's a good thing. If you are involved end to end in some intensive way, can be a good thing. I don't know that everybody wants that yet. There may come a point where we just don't care anymore. But there are a lot of authors, especially right now, who do want to know and see that some
Mhm.
person actually bled for their creativity
Yes,
and just left
exactly.
it all on the table. And so we want to see, like, behind the scenes stuff. So
Because when
taking
someone loves
pictures and notes
something
in your Scrivener wall, what that looks like. Go ahead.
exactly, because when someone loves something, and I'm talking about the consumer here, they want all of it. Like, if you think about, K-pop Demon Hunters. Like, sure, we all watched the movie, and then we wanted to see interviews, we wanted to see behind the scenes, we wanted to see the actors do little skits, we were making our own fan art. I mean, when you love something, you don't
Hmm.
want just that thing, you want all of it, more of it,
Hmm.
and so that's what we can give as authors. It's like, "Okay, you want it all? Here's all the shenanigans that went on to get here."
Yeah. Yeah. So I think it makes life potentially more interesting for authors. Now the question is, we just got to go and test this and see who's doing it
Mhm.
well. I don't know of anybody at all
I don't know
who's
either.
doing it well. I'd love to sort of start figuring that out. I mean, if
Mhm.
I can ever get around to doing it for myself, I want to. Um, I sort of did start as I was writing through my novel. I started sharing character little bios and figures and scenes from the world, and
One
it made
person
for
I am
very
gonna
easy.
have you guys check out, her name is
Hmm,
Autumn Krause, and,
okay.
Krause, and I'm sure it has to do with the GEO. I don't know if she intentionally learned about that and did it, but whatever she's doing right, because I have just seen
Hmm.
her skyrocket over the
Really?
last year, and the way she does it is that A, she shares a lot of character art, which again is kind of like
Ah.
that it's A, that visual aspect, but B, it's that I
Hmm.
want more. I need to see it in different formats. I need to see it in different forms because you're just so excited about the concept and how
Hmm.
she shares about her favorite parts and why she wrote it. She's coming out this year with one called The Gods Will Sing Our Song, Will Hear Our Song. The Gods will something
Gods
like
will
that.
sing our song. Yeah.
Sing Our Song, yep. And I seriously have just seen her skyrocket because I was friends with her back when she'd only written her 2nd book, which was Before the Devil Knows You're Here, which I love. And then she
Hmm.
started this new campaign with, her 3rd book, Grave Flowers, and exponential, exponential. So I am going to
Amazing.
basically model myself off of her,
Hmm.
um, because, oh my goodness.
Yeah, that's fantastic. So there you go, friends. If you've got any thoughts or questions on this, ideas, we can start crowdsourcing what works. Drop them in the comments and let's talk about this because it's not going to go away. And the thing that I also love about, well, GEO, it's less technical and it's just more human,
Mhm.
which means
Yep.
more of us can do it.
Yep.
The moment it sort of gets technical and you got to go get like a little Google certification degree on how to do stuff, I'm like, I'm just
Mhm.
not even going to try.
Yeah,
It's
it's
just
like,
too much
forget
to
it
think
at
about.
that point.
Yeah.
I'm
All right.
already trying to, like, publish, edit, design a book. I don't need another thing to think about.
Hmm. Okay. I think that's good for that conversation. Are we good to get a recording in for the writing school?
We absolutely are. I sent you the notes.
Sweet. Okay, let me pull up my Slack. We'll go
It should
have a
be a
look at
fun,
that.
kinda chill one, I think. I mean, they're all fun
Sweet.
and chill, but, like, this one especially.
Nice. Okay, I've got it up here. This is using setting as a character, ally, or antagonist.
So, it's actually both because we split up the first one into 2 sessions because it was just so long and lovely and we had so much to talk about. So, I just
Hmm.
figured we could combine the last 2 because they don't really need necessarily entire episodes to themselves, and they kind of interlock.
Okay. So then what's the topic for today? Or the
Well, it's
title?
bo wait, are you looking at the notes I sent you, or you're looking at the school?
Oh, I'm looking at the last Slack you sent me this morning.
Oh, yeah, then that's correct because there's, like, a
Okay.
second there's more notes beneath it that is also the second one listed on the school.
Oh, got it. So that's okay. So then the title for today is different to the first line in the Slack?
Oh, I didn't even think about a title for today, sorry. How about down to the details? Because that's kinda what we're talking about. You can call
Yeah.
it something about down to the details, uh, making your setting come alive on the micro level or making your world come alive on the micro level.
All right. Um, so bring your world to life. Well, is this a part two for previous one that we recorded, or is this a
No, so the
standalone
first
separate thing?
2 this is standalone. So this
Okay.
is week 3, but it's a standalone thing. So the first 2 weeks were,
Okay.
like, both talking about the macro level, like how you build out the politics, how you build out the geography, how you build out the religion and stuff like that.
Got it.
This is
Okay.
like, think about the room you're in
Okay.
kind of a
Okay.
thing.
So it's still world building, but now we're focusing on tiny things.
Yes.
Okay.
Setting the scene versus setting
I
the
wonder if we can call it
I don't know.
Honey, I Shrunk Middle Earth.
I love that.
I have never watched that.
I haven't either.
Um, I just saw I saw the concept art for it and all the behind the scenes for how special effects work, and so it was like hilarious watching people hugging big plastic donuts. And um, okay, all right, well, let's get into it. And we've got till about 11, and then at 11, I got my first guest coming on, Karina Turner, actually from our community.
Ooh, I'm gonna stay on for maybe 5 minutes just to say hi, and then I'll get out of your
Nice.
hair.
Oh, that's
But
a great idea. Good. Okay, so let's get into the writing school. Those who are watching, welcome. Gabby and I record every week ish a new lesson for our creative writing school as a way to keep it fun and human. And we're going to share one of these with you. And then after about a week, I'm going to take this live stream and I'll sort of lock it down so that it's for members only. All right. Hi, legends, and welcome back to the Creative Writing School. I'm your host, Dominic, joined by the awesome Gabby Batel. Hi, Gabby. Welcome.
thank you, how you doing?
I'm good. So today we're going to talk about Honey, I Shrunk Middle Earth. This is about world building part 3, and we're getting into the little details of what it takes to bring your world to life. Let's get into it, Gabby. Take it away.
The important thing to remember is that we've talked about building out the macro scale, right? We've talked about the geography, we've talked about, the politics and the religion and who has the money and where the money goes and why the money goes that way and the hierarchy. We've talked all about that. We've talked about society as a whole.
Hmm.
But you got to remember that we are not necessarily pretty much at all talking about society as a whole when we are writing a book. We are talking about one individual character. And then, of course, there is how they are affected by society, how they are set in society, how that impacts them. But we are still looking at one individual character. And so we can't sacrifice the smaller world that the character is in. As well, because we are not talking about society as a whole, for the entirety of this book, we are not going to have opportunities to talk about society as a whole at length because that's not the focus. Then you
Hmm.
wind up info dumping, which I have said I I'm highly going to recommend that you do not do. Instead, we are going to look at the character, what they are doing, and we are going to world build through them. And the way that you world build through them is you think about how the grander world building then affects the littler world that they're in. What does the room look like? Kind of a thing, right? I, for example, am writing a romantasy novella for a group project. It's called The Realms of Lurin, and mine is a world of gargoyles and thunderbirds, right? It's like it's
Ooh,
Jade City meets Bridgerton, put it that way. But it is the two different
okay.
sides are thunderbirds and gargoyles. And as I'm thinking about this world, I actually just had a great conversation with my editor about it. I was trying to build out the gargoyles world, right? And
Like
so
what it means to be a gargoyle, or the fact that they're in the world and you can see them?
it's a completely different world. It doesn't exist. It's a fantasy realm, so they are normal. They are the normal people, as are the Thunderbirds. I don't maybe humans exist on some other island, not on the island I have.
I see. Okay, to
Um,
be a gargoyle, what is that like? Is what you're saying.
exactly.
Okay.
So I've been thinking about, the society, the dynamics between, how the gargoyles got there and how they interact with the Thunderbirds. I've been thinking about all of that. But then I shrunk down my point of view and I thought, okay, the main character's name is Tamazine. What does Tamazine's house look like? And so then I am able to dig even deeper into the world by doing that because I thought, okay, well, their houses probably would not be made of stone because that would probably be seen as pretty tacky since gargoyles are stone creatures. So why
Well,
would you
that's
build your
interesting.
house made of
Hmm.
stone? Kind of a thing. That would be like having a house made of skulls. I mean, I suppose someone super goth might do that, but if you were anyone else, you probably wouldn't want that. And so I've inserted another piece of world building. You now know more about the world. You now have a deeper understanding of how these people think and how they work by just taking a minute to think, what does this house look like? What does this individual room look like? And
Hmm.
sometimes it does, take some second guessing on your part because it's so natural to just kind of go with what you know. For example,
Hmm.
I was writing a bird cage and I just had in my head that it would be made of rose gold. Okay. But then I thought, wait, gold is also an earth metal. It's not stone necessarily, but it's still an earth material. What would they think about that? And those are the kind of things that you can and should think about because those little details, that is where you're going to get the most opportunity to share about the world. Because as you remember me saying, if you want to do a grander thing, you can do it over the course of the book, describing let's say the political schemes. But that's going to take a while of buildup
Hmm.
over the book. Or you get little snippets, like 1 to 2 sentences of kind of out there world building that aren't necessarily connected to what the character is doing at that moment, still should be connected, but a little bit more tangential, because you don't want to make a block of text that takes the reader out of the story.
Hmm.
It's in the details of what they are actually doing in their own little space that really brings it to life and separates it from other stories.
Amazing. Okay, so your hack or your what you do is you think about the literal senses. What are you tasting, smelling, not just seeing, well, seeing as well. What are you feeling? And then out of that information, what does that tell you about the world? And you might then decide, like you just said, like the rose gold of the cage, you might then realize or decide that might not be a good idea. And so if they surround themselves with, let's say, organic material,
Hmm.
that then creates an interesting um, sense of or idea of their identity. Because if they want to surround themselves with organic materials, it it sort of means like they want to be in connection with something more alive and organic, as if in recognition that they are not. It's like we humans are kind of the opposite. It's like, I want my
Hmm.
home dead. Like, please be so dead. I don't want anything alive. I am alive enough. Thank you.
Right,
Right.
because everything
If
else alive tries to eat me.
yeah. Well, yeah. Or if it's like, if there's like motion and life sort of going through it, there's the possibility for stuff like mold and there's mice that gets in.
Yeah,
It's like, I
exactly.
put me in a dry cave
Hmm.
where there's no chance of anything coming out of the walls, right?
Exactly.
Completely different approach. But if you're like, again, I'm guessing a stone sort of based thing, well, you sort of then have to ask the question, do you even need a house? Or
Good
up to what
question.
point would you? Like, do they fly? Do they have wings?
They do
Um,
have wings, but they're not very good for they're more for gliding.
yeah,
They
yeah,
can't
yeah,
like take off.
yeah.
The wings are
So
not
I
that big or
remember somebody
powerful.
once saying, like, if you've got wings, you don't need of course, ground-based houses, and you might not even need doorways. You just have windows for everything,
True.
which is like, oh, dang it, this is the level of world building I didn't want to get into. I just wanted to get into the story, but it does make it so much more compelling
It
when you can do
does,
take
and
the
it
extra time.
really sorry, go ahead.
No, I'm just saying, yeah, take the extra time. It becomes a more original and interesting thing that readers go, well, I never would have thought of that and wonder where this goes.
Exactly, and you're right, the reader just feels more immersed in the world. They're like, "Oh, I can picture this as an actual place because I would be making these connections too." You know, if I were a gargoyle and I were made of stone, oh, yeah, I probably wouldn't want a house made of, the bones of my ancestors either, kind of a
Hmm.
thing.
Hmm.
So the reader really feels it, and that is what is going to get them more invested than necessarily having all this
Hmm.
grandiose outside world building, which of course is important because
Hmm.
that's going to lead to the micro scale. But
Yeah.
it's kind of like you have a better understanding of what's going on in your house, which of course is affected by what's going on in the world, but you're more connected to what's going on in your house. Plus, it just makes a clearer image in the reader's mind, which is what we want to
Hmm.
do. We want to make them forget that they're actually reading. We
Hmm.
want them to think that they're seeing it,
Hmm.
which, sorry, I completely drew
No,
a
it's fine.
blank.
What's interesting, so again, some of it is just about sticking the landing, right? It's about if you want to make a point, make your point, stick with it, and that's your thing. Because I'm thinking like along the same thing, and not to get into your story too much, but it's like, oh, this is interesting stuff. One, what are the 2 points? We humans wear leather, which
Mhm,
is weird, bro. Well, we do. We wear leather from animals, and also I'm thinking like dwarves in Lord of the Rings. They feel most comfortable underground.
mhm.
So, not kind of poking at your thing, but like if you're making a point, stick it and make it the point of the story because you can do other things with it. Dwarves feel most comfortable being underground. They feel
Mhm.
like they're at home because they are rock, and of course, they were born or molded from the stone, from the rock, and
Oh, right.
so they don't so it's interesting, they see themselves as qualitatively different living stone compared to dead stone, hard stone, cold stone, whatever that sort of surrounds them, and so, in that story, they don't feel that disconnect. It's so interesting to me what you just did, like, "Well, no, that would be way too goth." So then what does that mean about all stone for them? I'm thinking like Nikola Tesla going, "Everything has some sort of consciousness, even the stones have some sort of consciousness because everything is resonance." And I'm like, I don't know what to do with that, And then in the same way, I'm thinking, well, would humans live inside a skin-based home? Like, yes, that would be weird. Oh, wait, I love a leather jacket. So it just depends on your level of understanding of a thing.
You're exactly right, and that goes back to what I was saying, I think in the first episode of this month, which is it is your world, so you
Mm,
can do what you want with it. The
mhm,
point is to put the thought into it, to put the
mhm,
work into it,
mhm,
so that the reader sees that, so that the
mhm,
reader sees the connection and it doesn't feel arbitrary because we like order, especially in books, because the world outside can sometimes so this is where we deviate, derivate, whatever the
yeah,
word might
deviate,
be.
yeah,
Deviate.
or
This
be
is where we
derivative.
deviate. Yeah, there you go. So that's where we deviate a little bit from the role of we want books to reflect real life. Most of the time, that's exactly what we want because it needs to feel
Mhm,
relatable. It needs to feel real, like something that would
mhm,
actually happen so that we could connect with it. The exception to that is that readers tend to want some order in a book
mm,
because sometimes life does not necessarily feel very orderly
mhm,
inside at least the piece of it that we're at. Maybe on a grander scale, we're like, oh, yeah, we see how this was orderly.
mhm,
But the order that you bring to your book in the fact that you've put some thought into it. Again, you do what you want with it. That a lot of times is going to make a major impact
mhm,
on the reader. And we'll get to this a little bit more in a future lesson when we're talking about prose. But one thing that I really do want to touch on right now is that the way you do that is you think about the little details and when I say that, it's not even necessarily just the thought of, would the birdcage be made of rose gold? That is a detail. But what I'm
mhm,
referring to right now is when you're in the middle of a scene and you're trying to paint this picture for the reader, you need to think about what is actually happening.
mhm,
What is there? Fill out the little details.
mhm,
Right now, you could just, everybody talks about how hard it is to describe a room, right? So it's your job to then actually fill up that room. There's a book sitting here, there's a cap to a webcam sitting here, a ponytail holder, a journal. All those little things are A, building a picture of me, but then
Mhm.
B, they are really helping you see, oh, there's flesh and blood to this room.
But I think that's the point. When you're pulling out details, you're doing it to build a picture of you.
Mhm.
If the Roomba says nothing about you, unless the fact it means you're in a post-industrial modern society, well, then yeah. But um,
You're exactly
it's
right.
like you was it Chekhov's gun you've mentioned in the past
Mhm.
episode? Like, don't bring up the thing unless it's actually important. And an editor
Mhm.
will usually come in and go, "You gave me this, and it said nothing about the character or the actual world." And it's like, I know silver's gray, and I know the sun is yellow. Tell me
Exactly.
stuff we don't know. And what
Exactly.
do you think about this point? As this is something that I think that I've seen either as advice or something I've seen authors do. You can take the world and make it absolutely insane.
Mhm.
And Karina Turner is somebody who seems to do that routinely. You can make an incredibly weird world, but the one thing that stays ordered, and I think has to be a pretty cardinal rule, is your character and how they interact with it
Mhm.
because characters are persons.
And
And
persons
so a
are the
person's
same throughout.
reactions to things, or their lack of reaction
Mhm.
tells you something about them as well. You can have a completely weird world, or what people do is you have a totally normal world and then a really weird character. But no
Mhm.
matter how weird, we see them as weird because they're deviating from, well, here's what normal people do, and this person doesn't. I don't have to worry about the rest of the world being pink lollipops. This person is interesting enough. If you have an absolutely weird character in an absolutely weird world, then what's the normal, logical sort of the through line probably is going to come down to the character's reactions. Because if
Mhm.
the character reacts weirdly and they're a weird figure and it's a weird world, at that point you're like, I don't understand what I'm reading. There's no
Right.
connection for me to this thing.
Right.
What do you think about that?
No, I think you're absolutely right. I think that there are definitely ways to make a very odd character a little bit more relatable, but if there is just nothing there that I can connect with at all as a person, are then you even writing a character, or are you writing a rock or a
Yeah,
concept
well,
or
then
a
you do have to
hypothesis?
ask, like, what are you actually doing here, like, at all?
Exactly. And
And
are
that's
they
a
the
more
main
meta
character?
question.
Are
Yeah.
they the main character, or are they just kind of like, are they a part of the setting kind of a
Mhm,
thing?
mhm. Yeah. Cool. Okay, so we've gotten down to where, get creative, don't do the same old thing, like introduce more interesting ideas, like what
Mhm.
you've done with yours. And then it's coming down to the details. I like this thing you've got here. Differentiate where they're comfortable and where they're not. Why is that? What's that about?
Sorry, I just wanna go back one
Yeah,
quick
yeah,
second
go
and
ahead.
say one thing about the doing something creative with your setting.
Okay.
So, yes, you can absolutely go out there with, like I said, whatever you wanna do because it's your world. I also am going to posit to when you're writing different scenes, not necessarily go for the first concept that comes to your mind, because it's
Mm,
really easy to just go into something that even if it's like a little unique with the details, like the minutia, even if that's kind of like different from Star Wars or Lord of the Rings or whatever, it is really easy to slip into just doing the easiest, kind of
like a
most common.
default reaction.
Exactly, to that scene, and while it can be done because, of course, there are campfire scenes, there are, tavern scenes, there are locations that are,
Mhm,
kinda classic, and you can, of course, spice them up. There's the cantina in Star Wars that's different from the tavern in Lord of the Rings kind of a thing. Of course, you can do the different, but I also
mhm,
challenge you to take a minute and see where else could this take place. And the reason for that is it just keeps the reader on their toes. You know what I mean? If you go into the next scene and you're like, "Oh, I know what happens here. It's a tavern," kind of a thing. Well, what if you took that same concept and put it, I don't know, a spa? I just, and it doesn't have to be a spa. So, like,
mhm,
obviously not necessarily even the second thing that comes to mind. I'm just saying brainstorm it and
mhm,
see which one is different than what you're used to, but B also resonates with you because you need the connection of those 2. It
mhm.
needs to make sense, but it also needs to be like, "Oh," the reader's like, "Okay, this is interesting. Where are we going from here?" I am definitely, definitely going to recommend you do that because A, it just brings more life to the story. Oftentimes, it brings more interest because you're like, "Oh, a new location. I'm learning something new." And every time the character, or excuse me, the reader is learning something new,
Mhm.
that is what keeps them turning the page.
Yeah.
Now, to get to your question, which was about the differentiate
Comfort
between.
zones versus not. Yeah.
Exactly. So this is where we go back to the character. Because remember, everything I say from here on out always revolves around the character. Not even from here on out. Everything I have said and will continue to say revolves around the character and who they are. And that includes the world building. So you have to think about who this character is. what they like, what they dislike. We've talked all about fears and survival tactics and all of that. I won't repeat myself. You need to think about that. Then you think, okay, what in their world challenges them specifically about that? So, for example, let's say we're following cave people, right? But this particular cave person happens to be a very they like things in a certain way. They like things as tidy as they can be. That kind of a character who in modern life might be just kind of something of a germaphobe, a neat freak, something like that.
Mhm.
But you have to think of then about that character and their setting. What is going to make them comfortable and uncomfortable in their own setting as cave people? So maybe it's going to another cave. They're like, this is not my cave,
Mm.
that kind of a thing. So you have to think about what is available in their world to challenge them.
Mhm.
Because you, as the author, of course, want to challenge them. Unfortunately, we can't just have them go about their married lives being lovely. That's a different type of book than I know how to teach. I'm not I have no practice with slice of life. But for the kind of plot, action, development based stories that we're going for now, you always want to challenge them. And so you can think about, okay, what in this world is not conducive to what my character wants? What is not conducive with what they're afraid of? And
Mhm.
then on the flip side, again, could be very different from what the status quo of one might expect would be. What makes them comfortable?
Mhm.
I'm thinking of there's a book I just read called Poster Girl by Veronica Roth. I enjoyed it. Um, to the rest of us, the thought of having an implant in your eye connected to your brain that broadcasts everything you see sounds like horrific to all of us, right? I mean, I'm just thinking about how much I would wear an eye patch because no. But to this character in her world, it's actually more comfortable because she's like, "Well, I have access to information. I always know that like someone's just like a click away from if I need help." It's just what's done. It makes me part of a community. It connects us all. That makes her comfortable
Mhm.
in her world.
Interesting.
That's what you
Yeah.
need to think about the differentiation.
Well, it opens loops, doesn't it? It opens questions.
Mhm.
If she's happy about this, well, then what else weird or interesting could happen in the rest of this world that she'd has to react to? How would
Exactly.
I react to that? Do I even like the way that she's going about handling this? I don't know. I've never seen
Mhm.
somebody like this.
And it
Last I saw
makes the
was
reader
now I
think.
understand why you asked about Minority Report. Maybe because that one gets up to eyeballs and stuff, doesn't it?
Yeah, yeah. Actually, I read Poster Girl after I watched Minority Report, but I enjoyed that movie too.
Oh, I see. Man, okay.
I'm on a
Um,
dystopian binge. I don't know
kick
why.
right now.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So, yeah, that I've never thought of the focusing on where they're comfortable or not, and I'm thinking about, um, for some reason, the Transformers comes to mind. I don't know why. Mostly, I think in the first couple of movies, Shia presents as such an everyday guy, very likable, very normal, and then he's routinely shoved into a bunch of instantly uncomfortable situations, and they're usually done so that we can get a sense of who his character is.
Mhm.
Whether it's, I think it was his parents coming out of town. God, I've only seen these once years ago. His parents come out of town, there's, like, maybe a new vehicle, or he's lost his ride, or he's put in a room with some very rich people, and in all of these, you're not just paying attention to, like, "Well, what is this world?" You're also showing his reaction to this. Is he comfortable or uncomfortable here? I think you've just read Mistborn, right? Which is gonna be a movie
Yes.
series at some point.
I'm
That's gonna
so
be fun.
excited.
Yeah, and I think a game as well. They're making, like, a really high budget game for it. So
Ooh.
right from early on, right, we've got this, how do you have any, memories or suggestions that you can remember from that book or maybe from some other books of characters navigating comfortable versus non-comfortable, situations, and then why you think the author might have done that?
If you think about Vin, so Vin is kind of a street urchin. She grew up on the streets. Her brother was, I feel like there's more story to her brother, but we'll get to that later. She's grown up very hard and among thugs. And so she's a thief, maybe more of a con artist. Can't,
Mhm.
I remember later on in the book. And then Kelsier takes her on, and he's like, "We need someone who can." I almost called it bending. That's a completely different show. Allomancy. Someone who can burn these metals and bring out their powers, right? But we also, in the meantime, while you have nothing to do, we need someone who can gather information. And so what do? They stick her in a ball gown and they take her to the ball. And what I love about that is, like you said, the way that she reacts tells us more about her because, yes, of course, she is uncomfortable. Like, she's like, "I've never been here before," but she starts to kind of enjoy it. She's like, "Wait a minute, I can do this," because she's already used to, again, being a con person, so she's used to being adaptable to new situations, and then, of
Mhm.
course, she gets nice food, and there are pretty boys, and there are good dresses, and all that kinda stuff, and she's like, "Wait a minute, this is kinda nice," and so whereas another
Yeah.
character, I'm thinking of, I can't actually think of one off the top of my head, pick any romantasy character, would be like, "I hate this, I hate the dress." Oh, Feyre from ACOTAR. She
Oh,
actually
really?
eventually does wind up liking it too, but, like,
Oh,
in the
okay.
first moment, she's like, "I hate this, I need my trousers, I don't like skirts," kind of a thing. Two completely different characters, and their response to the same situation
Mhm.
differentiates
Mhm.
how they are as people, kind of a thing.
Yeah,
Let me
yeah.
think of another situation. Kelsey is just kind of comfortable anywhere. So, and the rest of them kind of are already in their comfort zone. I mean, I'm sure there are
Mhm.
instances that I can't remember off the top of my head where they're all brought out of their comfort zone. But that's kind of their world, and they're bringing Vin into it. I think
Yeah.
that's the point of that book. There is the
Mhm.
guy who's the ska guy starting the revolution.
It's been
Can't
10
remember his
years.
name.
Yeah, I don't
That
remember.
dude.
Okay.
When he is brought into this situation where he's so used to just being kind of like an obedient ska, and so even this revolution just feels too much. And so then when
Mhm.
Kelsier starts even going above and beyond, like, here's how we're gonna do it, this guy's
Mhm.
like, "Are you serious?" And
Mhm.
he's very resistant to it. And then when he does get thrown into the situation before he's ready, uh, he buckles. It
Yeah,
doesn't work
yeah,
out well. Let's put it that way.
yeah. Um, I'm watching, Peaky Blinders again,
I wanna
and,
watch that so bad. I like Cillian Murphy so much.
I love this series. I love this show. So I just finished the first season, and I'm thinking about like what you said about comfortable and comfortable and all of that. And of course, they end the first season as they will every season with a cliffhanger. There's
Mhm,
always some kind of a win, but then there's also a flaw or a problem or something to be unsatisfactory.
mhm,
And I remember rankling at that, like, oh, why couldn't they have just, been nice and why couldn't they everything have been okay? Like, why
mhm,
do we gotta have a shot of sadness in the middle of all of the win and all of this? And then the author side of me came up and go, well, what is your job as an author? To keep turning the page. Your
mhm.
job is to not satisfy and give the reader everything. It's to, yes, you won, the character won, but now there's this thing to handle.
Right.
And you're just gonna keep playing that game until you're just done, and the story's done, or you're George Martin and you don't know how to be done. Um, and you're just gonna keep playing that game. You're never it's never going to be because it's also life, isn't it? It's like, "Yes, we got married, but I don't have a job," or, "Yes, we got, the whole new promotion and the car broke down." And it's like,
Oh, no.
what is the point of all of this? It's to keep again, what's the point of a story? Like any story, if you can sort of get past the hand wavium of like cool stuff in Allomancy and dinosaurs, if you can
Mhm,
sort of get past all of that, what's the point at the baseline of a story? It's what kind of person are you? What kind of
mhm,
person is this? How do they respond and how do they get over these problems? And then at the end, do they like who they are? Because if they don't, well, maybe the story's not over because that means there's a sequel.
mhm,
Um, but usually a story is over when somebody's like, I've leveled up and I may not be 100% behind it all, but I can accept it and it's time to move on.
mhm,
Total sort of side thing I thought was actually very cool. It gave me a new insight into birthdays and celebrations. Um, as we progress through life, and this also applies to stories, maybe too, probably. As we progress through life, it's really important to celebrate mile markers, to celebrate progress,
mhm.
because you can't go back. And it is
Right,
not good to wish to go back.
right.
You have to keep leveling up. So, what do you do to sort of hack your brain, right? Is
Mhm.
you celebrate in a big way. You finish the novel, everybody's going out to Wendy's, Perkins, Red Lobster, right? Whatever, something nice. Um, qualify nice. What is the I don't know, you throw out some names, whatever. But we're all gonna go somewhere and we're all gonna celebrate together so that by the end of that celebration, you go, well, it would be stupid for me to try to wanna be who I was before because,
Exactly.
look at all of this attention everybody put towards this. And then
Mhm,
when I thought about that and I realized, man, I'm like now 38 and there's moments where I'm like, oh, I wish I was 25 again, right? But to then realize everybody that I know and love, for example, we all gathered around and celebrated the fact that you did it one more year down. And I'm thinking of, like, children, especially for younger children, like, they're like, "Oh, I wish I wasn't older, I've got more responsibilities. Ooh." But you're like, "No, look, it's awesome, you leveled up some more, here's a
Mhm.
huge celebration, now take out the trash. What? Big celebration, right? It's Christmas, but you take out the trash, Joe." Um,
Did you just have a birthday? Did I miss it?
oh, it's back in January.
Oh,
So yeah,
did well, if I didn't say happy birthday.
thanks, Gabby. But anyhow, I'm saying that to think about, like, it's what we do in stories as well. Like, you reach the end of a season, you reach the end of sort of a novel, and you give them a big win. It's like a big sort of celebration that the character, like Frodo, goes, "How can you pick up the threads of an old life? Like, I've now been through so much. It would
Mhm,
be like I'd be a traitor to try to go back and be who I was. I have to now integrate this, and I have to keep moving
mhm,
because that's what a person does is you keep leveling up 1%. You have to keep leveling up. Otherwise, you stagnate.
exactly.
I don't know if any of that relates to what we're talking about right now,
I think it all does
but it was a
because
side quest.
it always everything always connects to everything. The plot
Mm,
always connects to the character, always connects to the setting, always connects to the way you phrase it on the page kind of a thing. So
mhm,
yeah, I think it definitely does apply because then the setting and the world, what does it mean to level up? What is leveling up for them? How is the world helping them level up? What in the plot that has been set up by the world is
mhm.
going to help them level up?
Yeah, yeah. Oh, it sort of comes back to, like, comfortable versus uncomfortable.
Mhm.
And usually when you're not comfortable, you are paying more attention to details, and if you're really uncomfortable, it goes into bullet time, and you're
Mhm.
like, "I don't know that I like the way he looked at me. Look at the way that scar curves. That tells
Mhm.
me his past history. Oop, there's a bulge under his jacket. That's probably something I don't wanna see come out,"
Mhm.
and, or whatever. The more uncomfortable you are, usually the more details you're paying attention to.
That's exactly right, and you wanna use all your senses, and you wanna take a look at some of the weird details, and what I mean by weird is,
Mhm,
like, you don't have to, like, turn the quirk up to 10 just to be, like, odd for shock factor. What I mean
mhm,
is, like, I'm thinking of Poster Girl again. My first thought when I enter a room is not to note that there are, like, not garbage, garlic peels on a crate, but she brought that up, and I was like, "Oh," and it stuck in my mind because I still remember it, right? So
right.
all your senses because it's so easy to just do things that you see when it's so important to talk about what you hear, what you feel, and I love smell. Taste is a
Mhm.
little harder because something actually has to like be in someone's mouth. So
Yeah,
if
yeah.
something is in their mouth, make sure you tell me about that. But the things that you smell, those are like always there every
Mhm.
time you enter a room. And so use all of those, get all the senses involved to get
Yeah.
a better picture, but then B, just like more diversity in the descriptions are fun to read.
Mhm.
And then get down to the little stuff. Like you said, you don't wanna, like, name every tiny little thing that doesn't matter, but I also don't want you to underestimate what can actually matter, what sets the scene, what makes the room
Mhm.
feel a certain way, like the garlic peels on the crate. I
Mhm.
was like, "Oh, I see that this is a home, I see that it's a little messy." I'm reminded that because the crate is used instead of a table, so I'm like,
Mhm.
I'm reminded that this isn't a place where there's a lot of supplies and resources. So all of that just by mentioning the garlic peels. So absolutely right. Don't like oversaturate with things that don't matter, but also
Yeah.
when you're picking what matters, get creative with that and see what you can do because
Mhm.
it's those little odd details that make the difference, that make it actually feel super immersive and that
Yeah.
make you
Yeah.
forget that you're reading.
Yep, agreed. I'm just thinking this funny line, imagine opening a novel like this. "The sun shone yellow today. Weird." It's like, "What do you mean?" That
Okay.
instantly opens up like, "Well, what do you
Yeah.
mean the sun's not normally yellow?" I remember once
Exactly. There's that introductory sentence that
yeah.
makes you ask a question.
I remember once going to a writing group, and we all sat around and read a page of our work. And, I was slightly annoyed because I realized I got to the end of my first page and absolutely nothing had happened beyond an absolute page of description in size 10 font, probably. Um,
No.
absolute page of just
Single spaced.
describing everything because I thought, "I'm an author. Authors describe up the wazoo." And then, my little one is she's writing all the time now too, and I noticed how she did something which is exactly what I did, which is like, I'm putting my attention on anything in this scene. Let me describe everything. The rainbow colors were red, orange, yellow, blue. It's that's when I realized, okay, we are
Tolkien would be proud.
Tolkien would be proud. Everybody knows what stuff looks like now because we've had a century of novels sort of
Mhm.
getting up to all the same thing. So, like to your point, when you're describing your environment and you're writing what matters, what are the three parameters maybe about what matters, what makes the cut,
Mhm.
because describing everything that everybody is already familiar with is a bit of a waste. If you're describing, like you said, the garlic sitting on the plate, if you were a beginner author and if you're a professional author, my assumption as a reader is going to be if you're putting my attention on this, it means it's probably important.
Mhm.
If nothing comes from it, I will probably lose confidence in you as an author, which is routinely what happens, and I just stop reading books.
Exactly
If
right.
you're a good author and you start delivering on some of those promises, which is like closing those loops, like here, I asked a little question, like, "Ooh, are the vampires around? Is this a thing? Somebody's got a health condition?" Like, and you
Mhm.
start playing out those those questions. Um, when you're describing an environment or you're thinking about those details, what does it say about the world that is
Mhm.
unusual or interesting? What does it say about the character? And does it have anything, any relation to what's going on in the scene? If it's not involving any of those three, it's possible that you can drop those.
Absolutely
Um,
right. I am gonna add one fourth.
cool.
Does it let the reader fill in the rest of the blanks? So if you've
Mm,
got an empty room and you describe that there's a crate instead of a table with garlic peels on it, does it come back to that, like, concretely with regard to the plot or the character? Maybe, maybe not. But because you said that, I can now envision the rest of the room. I've filled in all those blanks. I'm like, "Oh, well, if there's garlic on this crate table, then there's probably, like, a messed up bed. There's probably, like, empty cans. The windows may be broken,"
mm,
because you implied a lot of things with that one detail. So
yeah.
now you don't have to mention that the bed's a mess and the window's cracked and the blah, 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 because I've already kind of filled that in my own head because you gave me the kickstart, because you gave
Mhm.
me the implications, and you were like, "Run with that."
Right, right. It would be weird if like you found an assassin's hideout and you're finding the garlic on the thing, and then you see they've got their grandma's quilt on their mussed up bed. You're like, huh, Family Guy much? Thief?
Yeah,
I don't know. Okay,
exactly,
let's start.
exactly.
So let's start closing this out. We've talked about honing in on the little details, but you've got an interesting line beyond using all the senses, which we talked a little
Mhm.
bit about. How does the character see things? And that is, as our closing thought, is really intriguing to me. So where does that go?
That is one of my favorite aspects of writing, when you get to describe something, because it is so easy to list a bunch of things as bullet points, right? And sometimes there are instances where you just need to see there are garlic peels on the crate, and that's fine. But if you do too much of that, where you're just listing a bunch of things that are in the room, a bunch of sensations that are there, it can start to feel just like that, like a list. And it's not really connected to the character herself.
Mm,
The character then needs to look at those and what does it remind her of? What does it
mhm,
make her feel? That's
mhm,
where some similes can come into play. You don't want to oversaturate with similes because then that gets a bit much. But a well-placed simile, that's the connection that the reader, I'm sorry, that the main character has made in their head with whatever they're seeing, kind
right,
of a thing.
right.
That brings out more of the character. Does this book make the character feel nostalgic? Does it make them feel like repulsed, like I hate books? I whatever. I had a bad experience with books. I hate books. Does I don't know. What do the garlic peels,
Mhm,
if
yeah.
that was an instance where the character
What are
was
some
making a
examples from your
connection?
book where you were paying attention to the specific character's point of view, flavored what they saw, and maybe what they ignored? Has that come up for you?
Yeah, I'm thinking of this scene in Don't, where there's an area near her house that her and her friends call the underpass, where it's basically like it's a big ditch drain under a hill. And then beyond that, there's like not woods, but there's like a little copse of trees. There's a patch of trees. And she goes there at night, and it should be this really kind of like gross place. Like I'm sure it smells like algae and there's trash hanging around and there's like, scat everywhere. Like I'm sure it's pretty gross. But she has so many good memories with this place that even when she's out there alone in the dark
Mhm,
after having one of the worst days of her life, she's looking at she's looking at the water on the walls and the slick algae and the she's looking at the trees, and it's cold, but it's like it's a sharp cold, it's an alert cold, and she's there's a fondness to it about the way she's describing it, even though it's harsh, because of course you still want to describe it as it is. I'm not going to describe it as like fluffy bunny rabbits and pink rainbows kind of a thing. But the way that she approaches it is she's kind of, she runs her fingers along the wall because she's savoring it. She likes that wet feel, that wet smell because of the good memory she has. Whereas
Mhm.
another character who, again, was just like coming up upon this place without a thing, they're like, oh my goodness, there's like, I'm sure that there's a serial killer hiding in that tunnel. It smells like mud. My shoes are dirty now. Two different ways.
Mhm.
That's why you need to approach it with how your character sees it.
That's so cool. In one of the stories that I wrote for Legend Haven, actually, it's the um, oh man, what was it called? The Chalamancer Trials. So one of the main character was somebody who's raised on kind of a coastal based academy. And so I had absolutely no idea that this was the case until I started writing the story. And then as I started getting through the story, realizing, oh, I need to describe everything that he's looking at the world in terms of what he would have experienced growing up on the coast.
Mhm.
Um, so the fact that, this it's I'm thinking like maybe blue lagoons and bamboo forests, and they're
Mhm.
training on beaches, and they're practicing for the Excalibur trials by racing skiffs around on the bay, because in the trials at Ribgate, which is a desert type place, you're racing skiffs along sand, and so they have to practice on water. It's the best that they've got. And so at one point, he's thinking about the magic that he is tapping into, that he has to uh, partner with his friend, and she's the one who channels the magic so that he can use it, and so they have to work together to overcome the trial. And I'm trying to describe the magic and suddenly realized, wait, he would only think of all of this in terms of ocean-based metaphors, water-based metaphors,
Mhm.
almost drowning, or if you get
Exactly
it's like
right.
riding a shark, and if you get it wrong, the shark could like speed off and kill you. And it's like, I can't use any other metaphors. I have to use everything that would be part of his life and what is normal for him.
That is
And I got
exactly
to the end of
right.
the story and I thought, man, this is kind of a cool character. I didn't
Yeah.
anticipate getting to feel him out from the inside. And then you end up with a whole bunch of unusual metaphors for exploring everything.
Exactly, exactly, and it makes sense for the character, and because it makes sense for the character, it makes sense to the reader. You've made that connection and you've done your job.
Yeah, you ended up I love there's a bit of an elegance when you can see it done well. I'm not saying I
Mhm,
did, but when you see it done well, where the world building is presented through the characters' reactions and processes. So you don't just info dump, you can um, keep presenting the unusual or interesting details as they need to come up, as the
mhm.
character thinks and experiences them.
That's exactly right.
I think we do like that a lot more today, given the readership that we have today. Like if you go back 100 years, um, you don't have the internet, you don't have TikTok. And it's like, well, okay, I can last 2 pages of world building, because like, what else am I gonna do?
Yeah.
Take out the trash? I'd rather not. I'll do 2 pages of why trees breathe
Are
or something.
green.
So, any closing thoughts to take us out for this lesson?
Go have fun, honestly. I just all the stuff that we've talked about, it's very like in depth, it's very technical. And of course, like there's craft to it, there's a way to do it well and to do it right. But at the same time, just keeping those things kind of hovering around in your mind, go enjoy it. Just see how deep you can get and see how amazing you can make a room, and also trust yourself and trust your reader. So don't be afraid that like, oh, I have to include every single detail. Like I said, I have to do all of this, otherwise it won't make sense. Remember, this is about having your reader fill in the blanks. This is about just taking them on a journey just well enough that they know what's going on and that they feel the moment. And a lot of times that's not by increasing your word count. That's by choosing your word count, choosing the details that really make it count and that set you apart, and that's where you get to have fun because you will know, wow, I
Mhm,
created something new. I created it in depth and I explored it well and I shared it with someone else, all while not sacrificing the story.
mhm,
And that's the fun part. So you get to do something amazing. Don't stress about it. And of course, there's always revision. Come
mhm.
back if you need to add some more, if you need to take away, there's always that. And enjoy it.
Yep. And I think knowing your audience is going to really help.
Hmm.
If you can own who you're writing for, it's going to help. Because I'm thinking of Tom Clancy, for example. If you ever
Hmm.
read any of his novels, he has a delicious obsession over all of the details of exactly what tech is used, what Kevlar they're wearing, what gun was used, and the history of that gun and why it mattered to the main character. And you get pages of exposition. But if you're somebody who loves these thrillers, you glory in all of the delicious detailing that
That
goes
is
on. And if you
exactly
don't like
right.
Tom Clancy, you're like, "Oh my gosh, this is so boring. You just spent 10 pages building up a character who got killed in the first scene." But you're like, "No, this is why we show up for Tom Clancy because, oh my gosh, do we love all the details?" And it's just so over the top, but if, the rest of us might think, "Oh, this is over the top." So, if your audience loves this kind of thing and you're part of your audience, then do it, and
Yeah,
get into it because it's part of the experience of the book, of
and
the
different
story, of the adventure.
exactly, and different stories sometimes have different audiences even within the same author. I'm thinking of
Mhm,
Poster Girl, which is by Veronica Roth, and then
mhm,
I'm thinking of her other book, Divergent. Very different. The world building in Divergent is completely different the way she approaches it. She does not describe a room in Divergent like she describes in Poster Girl, because
mhm,
Poster Girl is the backdrop is a dystopian mystery. That's honestly the background. The present, the focus is being in this world, seeing the little details, feeling what she's feeling. That's the point. And then, the mystery is kind of like the thing that she's doing so that it can be a book. In Divergent, it's all about what is happening, these new things, these new challenges that she's going to have to attack. And so they're just like the bits of world building so that you kind of know where we're at and what we're doing. Two different purposes, both excellent, exactly like you said, based on the audience and what you're going for with this particular story.
and I think that's a perfect place to wrap. So,
Wonderful.
we will close our class at
Cool.
that point. Alright, big stretch. Get the shakes
Yes.
out. Excuse me. Alright, we should have our first guest jumping on maybe right about now.
Cool.
I'm just gonna check my email inbox to make sure that she's okay, and she is I don't yet see anything from her yet, so hopefully she's still coming in. Ooh, I should check the actual community. Maybe she messaged me on there. Hold on. Which tab do I have open? She's written so many books. It's pretty amazing.
I know. She is prolific.
Hmm. Okay, nothing yet. So maybe she's still right now sort of filling the name and giving the permissions, and maybe we'll come into the studio. So cool. What are you watching this week? Anything new or interesting?
Hmm. Oh, Tracker. The next season of Tracker came out. Have you ever watched
Oh,
that?
really?
Oh,
I think I
it's
got halfway through the first season.
I
Um,
love that Karina's mic and cam already in use. Do you see that?
I do see that. Looks like she's trying to get in. It might be that she has two tabs open. So we'll wait for her to apply. That's kind of funny. I've never seen that notification show up
Yeah, I
before
haven't
somebody's
either.
in the studio.
That's funny. But yeah, so I love Tracker so much. I do have a crush on Justin Hartley. I'm just gonna say it. I do. More specifically, I have a crush on his
Mhm.
character in this show because he's just such a good guy. I mean,
Yeah.
I love the character development in him, how he can be like such a hardcore fighter. Like,
Mhm.
he'll shoot, he'll punch, he'll break the rules. There was one time there were children involved. He needed to find children and I think it was a knife. He took a knife and he's like, "You're gonna tell me where these children are, you're gonna lose a finger," kind of a thing. He's that kind of character, but he's so sweet.
Mhm.
He's so sweet, and the actor does such a good job because he's got like these very gentle expressions. He's very careful with the people that he's finding.
Mhm.
He puts everybody at ease. He's so respectful. It's just like a great character that is not one dimensional. Very, I don't know. It's just good.
Mhm.
I like that show a lot. And it's just fun. It's feel good,
Yeah.
everybody always gets found at the end. It's not, like, too
Mhm.
devastating all the time. I do that enough
Yeah.
myself.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I'm thinking of, gosh, what was the show that I've been watching recently? Like, Night of Seven Kingdoms is, I really enjoyed that. Like, it's really good,
Is it live
and
action or
it's the new Game of Thrones. It's like a 6 episode per
Oh,
season,
okay.
and, they spend instead of this massive kind of world, they just went all the way down to being like, what if you're a little knight who's trying to fight for your place in society at all? And then you enter into this little contest, and the whole 6 episodes is all about just this one knight trying to get into the lists.
How
And then he's
fun.
finally shoved into it, and everybody wants him dead. And now he's got to fight to stay alive. And then uh, the whole time he's like, "Is there any nobility left in this country?" Because he's got a very clear sense of morality,
Mhm.
and nobody else seems to. And, so it's really enjoyable, but like you say, he's also a fantastic character. He's simple-minded,
Yeah.
he's very focused, he's just this is the right way to be, and everybody that he treats, he's harsh, but fair with
Mhm.
everybody, and he instantly it's like, just being that kind of a person, he instantly makes friends,
Yeah.
um, with all of the good kind of people. It's kind of the point of the show, I know, but it also maps onto real life in a way that's very satisfying.
Yeah. That sounds fun.
Yeah.
I have not seen any of the, um why did I almost call it Lord of the Rings? Game of Thrones.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah, yeah.
sorry. I've
The other
not
one
seen
is,
any of those, but
yeah, the other one I enjoyed is I'm just checking my messages in case you said something. The other one I really enjoyed is Reacher, when I think that they're working on
oh,
season
Reacher.
4.
I
Yeah.
have not seen Reacher, but I that looks fun, so I probably
I
will
love that show.
eventually.
I think I started it, and then I'll usually stop, and then if, like, something feels boring, I'll jump into, like, sort of the middle of the season, and then I'll
Oh,
keep
fun.
going, and then I'll get hooked, and then I'll keep watching the rest, and then,
Oh,
like,
fun.
um so I love that show, largely because, again, like him, the character. Now he's got a major flaw, which I completely missed. What did I say about you, bro? Well, okay. But I completely missed throughout the whole thing until I saw a review on, online. Oh, Karina's here.
Yay.
I'll let her in. He's kind of a war hero type figure. He's kind and fair and harsh on everybody, but he's absolutely passive when it comes to women. He
Oh.
does not know how to like. He loves them. He
Mhm.
has a girl in every season, but he doesn't know how to initiate friendship with them. So he's
Mm,
like all
gotcha.
roided out, massive, strong, complete hero, but doesn't know how to connect with women. Somehow
Yeah,
magically still
okay.
gets them. But it's just interesting to, to just to watch that development. Okay, I'm gonna bring Karina in. Ooh, there's a new the actor for Reacher. He's in a new show on Netflix called War Machine,
Ooh,
which looks absolutely awesome. So I can't wait to see
that's
where
exciting.
that
I
one
get
goes.
Netflix in 2 weeks. 2 weeks I get Netflix, and I am going to watch The Ritual. That's the first one I'm gonna watch
Oh
because
gosh. There you go. Start with a
I'm so
bang.
excited. Yes, I'm gonna do that. I'm gonna finally finish season 2 of Arcane.
Ah.
I've been watching, my friend and I, Blood of Zeus Blood of
Oh yeah.
Zeus, which
Yeah.
is a whole lot of fun. Like,
Mhm.
I don't know I've put enough thought into it to determine whether it's, like, tech not technically, like, whether it is good kind of a thing or whether
Yeah.
I like it, but I enjoy it.
Mhm. I
It's a
enjoyed the
good
first season, I think.
okay. It
Yeah.
definitely, like, had s it surprised me more than
Mhm.
once kind of a
Mhm.
thing, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
What else am I gonna watch? I'm gonna try Shadow and Bone, but my
You haven't seen that
expertise
yet?
I've read
Oh
the
wow.
books, that's the
Yeah.
problem, like, I'm afraid to watch it because I've read the books.
Hi, Karina.
Hi,
Can you hear?
Karina.
Mhm.
We see you now.
Mhm. I try.
She might be rechecking her connection.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I've read the books to
Mm.
Shadow and Bone and Six of Crows.
Yeah, my wife is like, "Yeah, we should watch that again." Her man crush. Well, I've got the man crush. She's in love with oh gosh, what's his name? Prince Caspian, the bad guy.
Oh, the Ben Barnes? The
Ben Barnes. I
Darkling?
mean, yeah, he was
Yeah,
her crush since forever.
really, I love
So
that.
that's who I'm competing with.
That's
No, but
funny.
I've got a man
Here's the
crush on him
problem,
too.
I
He's
don't think
awesome.
I can ever love him because I read him in the books, and he is just vile. I hate him in the books.
Really?
So
Wait, Narnia or
the
Shadow and Bone?
Darkling. No, no, no,
Oh,
the
oh, oh,
Darkling.
oh. Yeah,
Yeah.
forget the books. No, he's very cool in the movie. It's like oh gosh, what was the other one that came to mind for a second? Oh, he was the bad guy in Punisher, which was the Marvel series.
I have never
What
seen that.
season was that? I think he was the bad guy in season 1. I'm
Ben
pretty sure
Barnes was?
season 1, Ben Barnes. He was an
Okay.
awesome bad guy. First time I'd ever seen him play a role apart from Prince Caspian.
Okay.
So I wasn't used to that, but he's very slick and clean and,
He is. He's got that kinda, like, suave to him, that
mhm.
little that smooth to him, and he's got great hair, goodness.
He does. Who did I watch recently had great hair? Oh, it was the Property Brothers.
The
They were
Property
doing
Brothers?
yeah, yeah, my wife loves them too.
What is it? I don't is it
Oh,
like a reality show?
they're 2 twins. They're like 6'8" each, and they do home renovations and,
Oh, how fun. I like stuff
yeah,
like
yeah.
that, like house flipping.
Yeah, exactly.
I like stuff
And
like that.
they have their specific style, and they just can't stop like dropping new seasons of TV shows by accident because like it's just always building stuff and then just filming it and turning it into content.
That's fun.
Okay.
Mhm.
Yeah. One of the things that I'm loving about Peaky Blinders is the composure of the main character,
Mhm.
and
Cillian Murphy.
he's just amazing,
Mhm.
and it's just fascinating for me to watch him because, and I think this is why a lot of people do. He's such a not a type A kind of character. He's such a what's the word? He's very self-controlled.
Mhm.
He's been through some horrific stuff, and now that he's back in the world, he reveals nothing about himself. And what's fascinating is that uh, the fact that he doesn't reveal anything about what he thinks or says is fascinating to just watch because you're like a normal person would emote right now. A
Right.
normal person would do so. The fact that you're not doing anything is just as interesting to watch. And then you start to ask, well, when are you going to break? And what are you
Yes.
hiding? And
Mhm.
what other games are you playing right now?
Mhm.
Because that's kind of his whole thing. He's
Yep.
the cerebral type who also has the capacity to be absolutely brutal when needed.
Right.
And that's a fact. And then he doesn't share anything about what's going on. And then he finishes doing something and he goes, and here's why, very Sherlock Holmes sort of thing. Now that we've done this thing, here's the story that I've been playing underneath the scenes this whole
Sounds
time.
like
You're like,
Kaz
oh,
Brecker.
yeah, love those kind of smart sort of people.
I love that it's from a meme because obviously I haven't watched the show yet, but I have to because it just sounds so good. And again, I like Killian Murphy. But where he's just like walking away from the building that I'm gonna assume he's just blown up and I think he's smoking a cigarette. Like he just kind of walks out and it explodes and he's like, "Yep, that's what was gonna happen. That's what was meant to happen." So I love stuff like that.
Hmm.
That's
Yeah.
from Peaky Blinders, isn't it?
Well, sorry, you just said Kaz Brecker?
Oh, sorry. I said I love Kaz Brecker, but then I
Hmm.
went back, sorry, to Peaky Blinders. I was saying that I haven't seen the show, but I've
Hmm.
seen a meme that I think
Oh, yeah,
is
yeah,
from
yeah.
the show
Yes.
where he blows up the building and then he walks away smoking a cigarette.
It's true. It's completely unfazed by everything. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. No, he lit that house on fire. It's in the last season. That's the big family home that they bought. It's like time to literally blow everything up and start again. And
Nice.
so if his whole thing is when a decision needs to be made, he makes a decision and he keeps on moving. There's
Yeah.
no time for regret,
No
no
turning
time for
back.
double thinking. It's like,
Mm-mm.
man, this is an amazing guy to kind of follow. Hey, friends, and welcome back. So, we've got a couple of minutes before our next guest jumps on. This is going to be Emily. We had some connection issues with Karina, which was a little bit sad. In the 12 or so minutes that we've got in the interim, say hi in the chat if you are just joining us. If you have any questions about anything, obviously, we'd love to chat with you. I've got a very cool thing on chronotypes that I want to share with you. This is something that I have worked on for the Legend Fiction community. And what is extremely cool about it is that your chronotype is your sleep pattern. And if you've never heard of that, which most of us never have, it's extremely helpful to know about. So let's share my screen and I'll share with you what I've put together for the Legend Fiction community. All right, let me know. Here we go. Okay. Chronotype is something that most authors that I've met, we've never heard of. And frankly, most people that I've met have never heard of. A chronotype is your sleep pattern. It's when you're supposed to normally, when it is good for you to be asleep, because but depending on when you sleep, you then have a corresponding time when you have the most energy. So if you're an author, you kind of want to be writing at the time of day when you have the most energy, if you can swing it, if you can control your day, or put the things that matter most to you at the time of day when you have the most energy. Now, if your sleep habits are all over the place and if you're fighting with yourself to go to sleep, obviously, I understand. Our days are tough. Things are tough. But if you can build a good habit around it, sometimes it's about knowing when you do best go to sleep. And you very well might be somebody who doesn't need a schedule at all, which is one particular type, or you're somebody who does need to sleep in a lot, or you're somebody who does need to, who thrives on getting up early and going to bed early. So simply knowing this can give you a lot more confidence about yourself and working with yourself as opposed to against it. So let's have a quick read. What are chronotypes? This is information that is taken from what is it? The Sleep Foundation. So you can go visit it there too. But I put it together in the Legend Fiction community as a mini course so that everybody can get a sense of it as well. So we'll just read through this together. Chronotypes are natural preferences of the body for wakefulness and sleep. And there are 4 of these natural preferences, which is why they've got these very cool lion type, wolf, bear, and dolphin. An individual's chronotype is influenced by your genetics. And it's driven by your circadian rhythm. Chronotypes affect sleep as well as performance and activity throughout the day. So, according to your natural chronotype, or adapting to it can improve sleep quality, energy, and your mood. And if you're an author, knowing that can improve when you write. So you can head over to the UCLA Sleep Foundation thing. I'll just keep reading because it's such fun. We know that night owls and early birds tend to feel sleepy at different times. What you might not know is these underlying internal tendencies, chronotypes, may also determine how well you sleep and how you feel throughout the day. Your chronotype is your body's natural sleep and wake preference. You probably have a good idea about when you are likely to be tired and when you tend to have the most energy. Now, we often fight these natural inclinations due to work obligations or family schedules or fear of missing out on stuff. But learning to work with as opposed to against your chronotype can improve your sleep quality and also improve what and when you write. Getting better sleep enhances your mood, your productivity, and your overall health. So there you go, it's your ability to write. Okay, so some of this is, let's see. Chronotypes are individual. They depend on factors such as age, genetics, and outside influences. So you can kind of shift around as you get older, or as when you're younger and you're growing up. Um, Doctor seems like Dr. Michael Bruce. He characterizes chronotypes based on the sleep-wake patterns in animals, and his widely recognized chronotypes are the bear. I mean, you just got to read. That looks so cool. Bear chronotypes make up about 55% of the population. So that's basically me at this point. People with this intermediate chronotype tend to follow the sun. They do well with traditional office hours, but they have no problem maintaining a social life in the evenings. The wolf chronotype is equivalent to the classic night owl, and it's believed to make up about 15% of the population. So traits related to eveningness include neuroticism and openness. Then we have the lion. The lion chronotype stands in for the early bird. These individuals wake up early and they're most productive in the morning, but they may have more trouble following a social schedule in the evenings. So I'm in between bear and lion right now for me because I do like getting up early, can't always do it. And then I crash. Like come 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock, I'm done. I can't do anything at night. And then we have our dolphin chronotype. This is based on the ability of real dolphins to stay alert even when sleeping. Human dolphins are best described as insomniacs. You basically sleep when you need to, how you need to. You know, I don't know that anybody can sustain this for a really long time. The fascinating reason why dolphins are actually in this is because dolphins do something weird, which is bicameral sleeping, meaning they can shut down half of their brain, put it to sleep, and the other half stays up. And then when that's rested, then they shut down the other side and then waken the other side. And so they're always half awake, and then they can sort of swim around. Nobody else does it. They say, oh, the rest of us just crash, and that's it. So we got a brief overview that's in here. And then there's some recommendations of what to do with that, such as scheduling time to exercise during peak energy, or maybe trying to write during peak energy. You're more likely to stick with it because you feel best, as opposed to trying to write when you feel at your worst, depending on your chronotype. If you're a night owl who needs to wake early, optimize light exposure in the morning and limit it at night. For example, go to bed the minute you feel tired, and then be consistent with your sleep schedule. So there's some other little recommendations in here that you can read. Now, for authors, most people are simply trying to cram their creative life into an already crammed existence and don't take full advantage of their chronotype. And it's understandable, really. You've got a lot on your platter already. But how can we truly enjoy our creativity if we're not accessing the magical time of day when we have access to our deepest creative selves? So that's from Story Envelope. You can go check out the rest of that post. So I recommend maybe schedule your writing time when you have the best energy for it. And you might have never thought about when that is during your day because you never figured out when the best time it is for you yourself to be sleeping best. And that might be different to rest of your family or rest of your dorm or the rest of your household or something like that. it might be perfectly okay for you to be awake at 1 a.m. in the morning, because that's partly when you can be calm and tired and uh, less tired. You have more energy then, or you're an early bird, and it is perfectly okay for you to be an early bird and then to crash late at night. What I love about knowing your chronotypes, for example, knowing if you're a lion versus a bear, you can be intentional about the time you sleep and the time that you wake. Your body will be happier. You will be happier because you're working with your system. You're working with how you want to function, as opposed to how you are being forced to, or told to, or encouraged to, or expected to. So in each of these, we've got a short
Hey
video,
everyone,
and it is taken from their website. So you can go and catch it on their website. But the reason why we have it in our community is so that you can get a quick sense of it. And then at the end, if you are this type of chronotype, you can mark a lesson as complete and you get that badge on your profile. So for example, I'll go show you what my profile looks like. I've got the, I think I probably got the bear badge. Yeah, see, there it is. So I have a bear chronotype. So there you go. If this is helpful, say hi in the comments below. And if you've ever heard of chronotypes before, you can just Google it, you can research it, and hopefully you'll find it helpful. And then if you're just joining our community, you can have a look through the Legend Guide tour. And we've got it all written in there, so you can update that and change that at any point. And hopefully it encourages you to find the best time of day for you to do your writing. All right. Let's close that. And we have hopefully our new guest coming on. Let me stop the screen share. We should have our new guest coming on in a couple of minutes here, which is Emily Strand. And while we've got a couple of minutes, let me share with you what we're working on. So I've mentioned over the last couple of weeks that we have a fiction convention. So I'll share this with you here. I think it just looks awesome this year. We're continuing to make it better every year that we can. And so we found a new way to make it even better than the last time. We're actually going to host a, if all goes well, and we can build it all to be really awesome, we're going to host live streams here on YouTube, totally free. So it's an event where we want all kinds of authors to come and join us. It's going to be completely free for any author anywhere to jump onto our stacks of live streams and share what they think and the stories that they're doing right here on YouTube. Oh, and that's the end of that. We've got Emily in the studio. I'm going to bring her in. All right, let's bring us in. Hi, Emily. Nice to meet you.
Hello, hello. Can you hear me?
I hear you perfectly fine. Thanks for joining
Good.
us.
Thank you for having me. It's very exciting. I have a rough but ready podcasting studio in my basement at home, but
Ooh,
I'm here in my office. So
okay.
we're using the tools at hand. I may or may not have an upside down vase holding up my phone. It's all very
That's
ramshackle.
great. That's great. No, it's perfectly fine. And
Good.
unfortunately, the last guest right before us is from the UK, and the connection wouldn't hold, and so
Oh,
it was a bit sad. But I'm glad that we're able to get you on to join us. So what I'll do
yes.
after this live stream, we're currently live on YouTube, and I think we've got like one person watching us. So I'll
Hello,
clip this
one
out
person.
afterwards. One hero, one legend out there in the YouTubeverse. So I'll clip this out afterwards, and then we'll make it its own standalone video. So with your own
Cool.
thumbnail and stuff like that. So Emily, yeah,
Very
thanks
cool.
again for joining us. Hi,
Yeah.
we've not yet met. I'm Dominic, founder of Legend Fiction Community, and connected with you through Eric Clayton,
Eric
who mentioned,
Clayton.
this awesome conference that you all are at, Chicago, right? Faith that Builds
Yes.
Worlds.
Yes.
Mhm.
At Loyola, and I'm so excited about it. And Eric was the one who, how did he and I first connect? I'm having trouble. When it goes back a long way, I'm having trouble. It'll come to me at some point. But we connected over Catholic nerdery. So we're both in the
Oh,
Catholic nerd
okay.
space.
That's not a website, is it? It's just like nerdery in general.
Yeah, right, exactly.
Okay.
Yeah, it should be. Shouldn't it be a
Yeah.
website? CatholicNerdery.com. I think
You're-
everybody .org maybe.
Hold on, you're giving me an idea here. There's no way that does. I mean, it probably doesn't exist, but it should.
Does the word
Nerdery.
nerdery even exist?
Only a
Again,
nerd with
it
a
should.
chair.
So Eric and I, maybe Jesuit Media. Yeah, maybe that's how
Yeah.
we connected. Anyway, And so then I got this great invitation to be part of that, for part of this conference that's upcoming, and
Mhm.
it's like couldn't be more up my alley. So
It
I'm
sounds
glad to be there.
brilliant. So, faith that builds worlds. Yeah. Eric has collaborated with us a couple of times. I think I've had him on the channel, and then he pre-recorded like a mini workshop on Jesuit. No, it wasn't Jesuit. What was it? It was the imagination and the Ignatian practices, like how they can work
Yes.
together for authors. And it was such a
Hmm.
cool, like 5-part mini series. And then when he said, "Hey, we're doing this really cool conference," and I said, "Okay, I want to meet everybody who's involved in this thing and try to help promote and share the news about it because it sounds fantastic." So Emily, I'd love to spend maybe a half hour with you till 12 p.m. my time, and
Yes.
hear about what you're doing and who you are and what you're up to, and talk about your latest work. Are you a fiction author yourself?
Oh, that's a good question. So I am, yes, I'm going to say yes to that.
Okay,
I
that's a very
wrote,
author thing to do. Like with a qualified, there's a
yes,
coda
with the,
here.
it's, well, we writers feel bad when we don't write.
I have to ask,
And
is that a Star Wars pendant?
totally
Okay,
is,
you won my
totally
heart. Keep
is.
going. Keep
And,
going.
and then the robot t-shirt as well, because I
Oh
was
yeah,
teaching robot literature today in class. And so, so
as
I
one
thought I'd,
does.
and then
Okay.
I had the podcast with you as well. Oh, and I also wanted to say, and given this context, I would usually say I'm staying to the bitter end, but we do have mass at noon.
Oh sure,
The
sure.
director of campus ministry should probably be there, so I might run out on you at 11:55 if that's okay.
Perfect.
So,
We'll plan for that.
thank you. Good. Um, okay, so fiction. Yes, most people grew up watching Star Wars. I saw a little bit of it, but I was the youngest of 5 children, and nobody was really that into it in my household, and so I wasn't really exposed to it thoroughly
Hmm.
until I was 38. And
Okay.
then I kind of went all the way in with Star Wars, and I was very
Okay.
inspired by some of the characters and some of their relationships, especially Obi-Wan and Anakin,
Hmm.
to write a work of fiction. And I really dove into it. I was kind of like, okay, am I doing this? Am I really doing this? So I was like, yeah, I'm doing this. And so I just decided to treat it as a first novel experience. And
Hmm.
so I joined a local writing group, and we did critique sessions with everybody's works. And that gave me a lot of great experience too. And I have so many dreams, and I finished it. It's a completed novel. Obviously it's not published
Oh,
because
that's awesome.
yeah, Star Wars usually picks their own authors. They don't take really submissions very
Oh, so
often.
you wrote like a Star Wars fan fiction sort
Yeah,
of
yeah, you
thing?
could
Oh,
call it a
how
Star Wars
cool.
fan fiction. Yeah, yeah, it was really gratifying. It was really great to be able to kind of take some of the themes. And I also
Mhm.
did the thing where I'm not a big reader of fan fiction. I don't really like when people mess with the canon, like make things
Right.
different from what I would expect. And so mine is very canonical. It's a very canonical work of
Okay.
Star Wars fan fiction. Yeah. So maybe that's the academic in me.
Okay.
But yeah, but it was great. And I recognized afterwards that I was really working out some things that were going on with me and
Hmm.
using these characters as kind of a safe space to do this. And so it
Yeah.
was really interesting. It's been a while since I did that, and it just sits on a shelf in my house, and
Hmm.
I pull it out and I read it, and I shared it with a few friends and everything. And
Oh, how
um
cool.
yeah, but
Can
I've
you tell
always
us
thought about,
anything about it? Sorry, go ahead.
oh no, yeah, well, I can. So like I said, it focuses on Obi-Wan Kenobi is just a miracle to me. When I first watched A New Hope
Hmm.
at age 38, as an adult, paying attention with my adult sense of attention,
Hmm.
um I had to stop it midway through because I can't stay up late these days. Um, and my husband said, "Well, what do you think so far?" And I said, "Well, I like that Ben Kenobi.
Hmm.
I don't know what's going on about him, but I like that music that plays when he's around, and there's something magical about him, right?" So I fell in love
Hmm.
with him really pretty quickly as a character, and he's such a quintessential Jedi, And this question, the story really deals with this question of, would things have been different if Anakin would have had a different master? People always want to ask these
Hmm.
questions about
Okay.
Anakin and their relationship. Like, what if Qui-Gon hadn't died? You know, would things have been different? Would Anakin have fallen to the dark side? Would he have become Darth Vader? And I love Obi-Wan so much. I'm not objective at all when it comes to Obi-Wan, because I identify with his sense of honor, his sense of integrity. I feel that way toward the Catholic Church, especially toward the Catholic liturgy, and I want to defend it. I want to represent it well, and I want to kind of be, you know, doing it the way the vision for Vatican II, you know, wants us to do it. That's everything I want to do. And I feel like Obi-Wan is like that with the Jedi Order. And so I wanted to play.
We need more nerds in life. Get going.
Exactly. So I was playing with all that, and Anakin is 13, which I chose because I was like, what's the most challenging age for rearing a child? How about 13? Which now that I have a 14-year-old, I'm like, I nailed it.
Okay.
And I you know, explored their relationship and Obi-Wan's commitment to the Order and Anakin's their continuing grief over Qui-Gon, and so they have an adventure. They meet a new character, a couple of new characters, and they have an adventure that really tests both their relationship and Obi-Wan's relationship with the Order. So
Amazing.
yeah, so that's what I'll say about it. But yeah, I love it. It's mine. It's no one else's, and yeah, it's a treasure that I hold. So, but I'd love to get back into fiction writing, but full-time work does make that very hard.
What is it that you teach these days, apart from robots in literature or something?
Yes. So right now I'm the director of campus ministry and adjunct faculty and liturgical music at Ohio Dominican University, which is a very small school here. Columbus, Ohio's only Catholic university.
Okay.
So very small school. Everybody wears lots of hats. So those are my 3 hats. But the course that I teach is for our humanities core program. And freshmen, first-year students, there's a course every year. So in the first-year course, it's a Core 179. The question that we deal with is, what does it mean to be human? Okay, so then moving on the following year, we talk about what is the common good. Okay, so these are all Dominican values, by the way. And then the 3rd year is what is justice. Okay, and then the final year is what is truth? What are the truths that we have learned in our time here at this Dominican institution? Of course, St. Dominic founded the Dominican order in a time when truth was seems to a lot of people like a moving target, and so not unlike our own age that we live in. And so Dominic founded an order that sought to preach the truth and to bring the truth to people, and to preach that, to represent it well. And so yeah, so that's our humanities program. So when I heard what does it mean to be human, I immediately thought of robots. Because I am a nerd, but also because I have learned through studies of science fiction how robot stories have this kind of unique advantage of inviting comparison with human beings and showing us an artificial version of ourselves and challenging us to ask, what is the difference? What is the difference between us and them? And there's some really fascinating and very entertaining robot stories out there. And so we do kind of a wide sweep of robot stories, and I pair them in the course with pieces of Catholic social teaching. So we read 1891's Rerum Novarum by Pope Leo XIII, and we pair that with 1920s Rossum's Universal Robot by Karel Čapek, the Czech writer, and both centrally concerned with work as an essential aspect of humanity and the dignity of work. And what happens when we take that dignity away? Do we get a life of luxury and a life of leisure and a life of plenty and paradise, or do we get something else, right? Is there an inherent dignity to work of any kind? Yeah, and I'm going to talk about all this at the conference.
That sounds incredible. I mean, I could see a course like Isaac Asimov and the Albigensians or something, or Hephaestus, and his golden robots. No, I think it's absolutely. Gosh, you're bringing back a memory of something I was chewing on a year ago, having to do with, what was it? I think it had to do with like robots and stuff like AI and egregores, and how we create or we subcreate a partition, or no, what is it? It's something that we do in ourselves already. We partition parts of our personality for a specific goal. I can't remember my conclusion, but it was just something I was chewing on. And then
Hmm.
it becomes a problem when we externalize that and then assume that that thing can be or match up to the complexity of what it is to be human, which is
Yeah.
there's so much more to it, but we don't exactly know what that is yet. Fascinating. So you study robots as a
Hmm.
way of holding up a mirror to show how incomplete they are, um,
Yeah, yeah,
relative
and
to the
then
human.
well, and so that's like the early kind of take on robots. So Karel
Mm,
Čapek was deeply concerned, the Czech writer who wrote RUR, which is the play which coins the word robot.
oh,
And it gets
really?
co-opted into all manner, all the languages use this word robot, which I think is really, so he based this word on the word, the Czech word roboti for indentured servants. So those
Mm,
who are, forced into servitude through the serfdom system in both Eastern and Western Europe, and it hung on a little longer in Eastern Europe than in Western Europe. So it was really a term that would have been fresh in people's minds in 1920. They would have known what it meant. It was a flag.
yeah,
It
yeah.
would have flagged people to understand these robots as basically slaves.
Hmm.
And but I find it fascinating that even in the field of robotics,
Hmm.
they still are utilizing this term
Hmm.
that means forced servitude, right?
Right, right.
And so that there's no partition between the literary and the scientific in terms of our nomenclature for
Hmm.
this. So then, as we go into, and you mentioned Isaac Asimov, and we do read 3 stories from iRobot,
Hmm.
which is a collection of stories. Um, Students really liked those stories. I was dubious. I'm in my second semester of teaching it. I was dubious that they would really get. I was like, "Oof, am I over nerding on them?" Because I know not everybody likes science fiction, but they really glommed onto it. They got a lot out of these stories, and I pair those. They're mid 20th century, and I
Hmm.
pair those with writings from the Second Vatican Council, and an essay by Martin Luther King Jr., Pilgrimage to Nonviolence.
Mm,
And I really speak to them. I teach a lot about dignity and solidarity. At that time in the course, we're also like diving deep into the themes of Catholic social teaching and what those are.
mhm,
And so we
mhm,
talk a lot about dignity and solidarity. And the story of robots in literature gets a lot more optimistic in the mid 20th century. Asimov is giving us robots who really are superior to humans.
mhm,
And we have to learn to trust them. Our instincts are back with Karel Čapek's work, with
mhm,
RUR, where they're going to rebel against us at some point. If we make them
mhm.
enough like ourselves, they will rebel against us, right? And it's
Right,
when
right.
Chopik's robots are imbued with souls that they begin to
Mhm,
rebel against the humans, which is fascinating.
mhm,
So Asimov is beyond that, and he's not doing everything in reference to Genesis anymore, right? And so he's created these robots that are superior to humans in every way, and even the rules that govern them um, cause them to appear to be revolting against us, but really what they're doing is moving us out of the way so that they can complete the task that they know we cannot
that they've
complete.
been assigned. Right.
Exactly, exactly. Right, fulfilling their programming. And
Mhm,
so at that point, the students get to do some reflection on their own programming and what they are programmed to do, what they feel like their calling is in this world, and how they're going to achieve that calling. Right. So if your
mhm,
calling is to be an upstanding member of society, to be honest, to be known as somebody who's honest and forthright, how are you going to put that into effect? What are the actions that you're going to take to put those values into motion? And so that becomes fun. And then to look at the struggles, the civil rights struggle in the mid 1960s, and the
mhm,
way that the Second Vatican Council's teachings really are of that era, are certainly of that era, is something that we take a look at, and
mhm,
looking at the dignity of every human person. So that kind of evolves
mhm.
the look at robots, not just as this thing that might take over and we should fear them, but rather
Right, right.
as this asset that we have ourselves created
Yeah.
to
My
enhance
goodness, I would
us.
love to take
So,
this course. I've got stuff rattling around in my mind, like
yay.
Gurdjieff from early turn of the century, and then Elon most recently. And here's where I'm going with this. Gurdjieff said something like, "Most people are walking around functionally asleep, like you're blinded by a
Ooh.
lattice of
Mm-hmm.
filters, and basically you're an NPC. spiritual
Mhm.
NPC. You're not actually here. You're just doing what everybody's told you to do, and at no point were you ever
Mhm.
actually awake. So you could be like a bio robot, you know.
Mhm.
And then at one point during the early prompting days for chat, or as AI was emerging, Elon basically said, "Yeah, raising kids is just basically prompt engineering." And I think he's evolved maybe beyond that a bit. But there's a point at which if you stay at that level of conscious awareness, you're just basically following prompting, and you're about the same as functionally the same as like a robot. You're just something that's doing things that you're being told, and you're not actually waking up to your own dignity, you know. So
Mhm.
doing with the kind of thing
Mhm.
that you're doing and talking about robots, um, and what consciousness means, because invariably when a robot wakes up, it always ends up
Mhm.
breaking with its programming. I haven't finished watching the latest Foundation um, on Apple Plus, but I'm getting this
Mm.
growing sense that this, like halfway through the second season, 2/3, that the tension is between the enduring eternal being that is the robot servant, who is serving the humans who are trying to be eternal, enduring beings, but it's not actually working, and just humans are so dang unpredictable and whatever. And it seems like this ongoing question that we're struggling with. Um,
Mhm.
where does your mind go with any of that nerdery?
Yeah, well, it definitely goes, well, of course, I goes to this question. I'm glad you brought up child rearing, because do this act of childbearing and child rearing for a variety of reasons, but it's a real treasure of humanity. Um, and stuff I got from Harry Potter, you know, like that's the name of my memoir, by the way.
Oh,
Stuff I
really?
got from Harry Potter. Yeah, you know, it's the way we immortalize ourselves, right? It's the only okay way, you know. And we can try, you know, we can child rear in a way that is like programming a robot, but you know that will only take us so far, right? So pretty soon these teenagers haven't already, they will decide for themselves which direction in life they're going to go. And
Mhm.
so we have that struggle. So it's this beautiful, um, you know, it's a beautiful programming a robot, because you know there is this sense of creativity in the one's own self. Um, Human labor. So no humans have any jobs anymore. No one has to. You have everything you need because the robots are just handing it. The humans become sterile. No children. The birth
Mhm.
rates drop and drop and drop until no children are born ever.
Mhm.
And so this is the curse of the robots. And so um, you know we do have, you know, I mean, we see in Genesis that God creates and God makes us have, you know, of course all the Tolkien fans in the room, and Tolkien, you know, always rejoicing in this idea of subcreation.
Emily, just letting
And
you know,
so
I'm
yeah.
so sorry to interrupt. The connection has been pretty rough for the last minute and a half or
Oh,
so. I don't
has
know if
it?
there's
Okay,
anything that can
sorry.
be done, but you're saying
Um,
awesome stuff, and I know we're just missing part of it. I'm just curious if
oh,
there's
I'm sorry, and
anything
I talk
that's
really fast too. I am not on the Wi-Fi, which is helpful here.
Mhm.
I have sufficient bars. How's it? Is it behaving now, or is it?
It's actually picked up a little better now. Yeah, we
Do you
can hear
want me
you
to hide
better.
my camera? I could also hide my camera. If
And it looks like you froze again. Why don't you,
oh,
that's, it's sad to have to say that, but yeah, why don't you try disabling the camera, and let's see if we can,
all right, that's okay. I'm a disembodied voice.
very robotic. Okay. You were
Let's see if
saying,
we can get it back on.
so go ahead. Could you just pick up again from where
Oh,
you're talking about why
certainly.
children are a valuable thing, and then you can't fully control the
Yeah.
outcome, and then you're
Right.
getting into
Right.
Tolkien.
Yeah. That is the exciting part about children. You're supposed so but then what happens when robots, our own creation, kind of grow beyond themselves?
Hmm.
Um, the next after they read stories from iRobot, we all get to the point in the semester where we're um a little tired. So
Hmm.
I built in a day where we watch Star Trek.
Okay.
So the episode we watch is I think it's episode season 2, episode 9. It's called The Measure of a Man. And in it, Lieutenant Commander Data, oh, I don't know if that's his rank at that point, but he's Commander Data for sure.
Mhm.
He Bruce Maddox, who then comes back in the Picard series, the modern series Picard, he comes onto the scene, and he's a robot scientist, and he wants to take Data apart. And at this point, in our understanding, Data is unique.
Mhm.
So he wants to take Data apart and make more Datas, right?
Hmm.
So, and he can't do
Okay.
this without disassembling Data.
Right.
He
Destroying him.
does, yeah, and that's the implication, is that throughout the episode, it becomes clear that he doesn't have a great plan for putting Data back together, and
Mm.
nor does he have the expertise of the person who made Data, who is long gone, whatever. And so then he forces the issue. Data says no, thank you. And Maddox forces the issue, and they have to have this kind of trial.
Mhm.
And poor Riker has to speak on behalf of Maddox, as his attorney, and Picard speaks on behalf of Data. And the whole trial is just this beautiful platform for determining who Data is and why he should have the right to decide whether or not he is disassembled, whether or
Mm.
not he has the free will.
Okay.
Um, and it's a really fascinating episode. And again, I really thought last semester, this is the first time that I was doing this, and I really thought the students would be like, what is this old fashioned show? But I have
Mhm.
to say, students these days are really surprising me
Yeah.
with their appreciation for all things, late 80s and 90s. And it's really great because they sat there just stuffing popcorn in their mouths the whole time. And then they had all these insights about sentience and what determines sentience. Um, the fact that they could see the cruelty that Riker had to kind of to perform in order to make his point that Data shouldn't be allowed to choose.
Mhm.
And they were really struck by this idea that Data has these relationships with the crew. He decides to resign from Starfleet to avoid being taken apart, and the crew throw him a party and give him gifts, and they've got all these inside jokes with him. And he's, I don't know if he has a cat at this point. Yeah, I think he does have a cat, because he's got to bequeath his cat to somebody. I don't know, I might
Okay.
be making that up, but it's really the relationships that he has with the other crew members, including one romantic relationship with a crew member who's no longer there. And the students were just they really gravitated toward those aspects of the story. And I couldn't believe how well they kind of dove into this very vintage looking nerd episode of Star Trek. But it is a fantastic episode. So
Gosh.
and
Wow.
it's really interesting resonance at the time
Mhm.
to some of the Supreme Court decisions about transgender athletes, and the
Mm.
way that they were making decisions about this one case base that's going to create a precedent,
Mhm.
about, so anyway, so there were some really great in the news things to discuss with it as well.
Okay.
So
Wow. Wow. Well,
yeah,
I know you got to run, but my goodness, I
I
would like to have you
do. Oh my
back. There's
gosh.
so much more that we haven't even started talking about, and you just kicked open a can of worms. I didn't even hear anything more about you and what you're up to, but I would love. I hope someday you share that novel, because it sounds just absolutely cool. But
Oh,
Emily,
thank you. Anyone from Star
thanks so
Wars, if you want to
much.
publish it, just be in touch. Be in
Well,
touch.
if you've not heard of Alchemized, a lady totally wrote a fan fiction about Harry Potter, and it did so well that she just swapped out the names, published it. It became a bestseller, and it's now becoming a TV series or something, or a big
Oh,
movie.
I'm
So,
gonna try sharing my camera again, just because I want you to
okay,
see my face. I'm
yes,
like, wow. You know what? I'm gonna follow up with you about that, and I do have to run a mass, but I'm
yep.
gonna follow up with you about that, because I would love to. I co-host a podcast called Potterversity, where
Oh,
academics talk about Harry Potter,
okay.
and I would love to maybe have that person on
I'm
the
no
show.
academic. I've watched the movies, not read the books, and I love the whole thing,
Yeah,
but that's where it ends. So I'll follow up with an email. But thank you
yeah,
so
yeah.
much for
That would be
coming on,
great.
and we should
Thank
absolutely collab
you.
again.
All right, definitely. Thanks, Dominic. Great to meet you, and thanks to all your viewers.
Absolutely. That was good to spend time
Okay.
with you. Bye.
Yeah, you too. Bye bye.
There we go. Well, thanks, friends, for hanging out with us. I think that was a gosh, that was a fun conversation. That went hard very fast on robots and consciousness and what it means to be a human. I'm gonna see if I can try to get her back because I think that was a pretty. There's more in that conversation. Are you a sci-fi nerd? Do you enjoy sci-fi? Type the number one in the chat if you like sci-fi. Um, and have you ever heard of Arthur C. Clarke? You know, man, I wanted to ask her about 2001: Space Odyssey because that seems like that would have been interesting. Those sort of black monoliths that appear. They look like shut off smartphones. Honestly, they make me think about that a lot when I see a TV looking all dark and black. And I think that's kind of how they did it when they made the movies, is to think that way. Anyway, thanks so much for hanging out with us. We had a fun 2.5 hour live stream. This will be up for about a week, and then I'm going to gate it for members, but then I'll take like clips of some of the best parts and share that afterwards. So um, if you got any questions about indie fiction writing or anything like that, I have to head off now. But drop your thoughts and questions in the comments, and I will reply to everybody who's nice. And if you're not nice, I'll probably reply to you too. But I'll certainly be a lot nicer, if we're trying to figure out how to do stuff better together. So thanks again for hanging out with us. And if all goes well, I will be back, and we will see you next week. All right, cheers, friends.